Well, I never even thought about it. I opened up the milk and I had a zinger or a bite, and I went and took a drink, and it was lumpy. And it was all I could do to get from my desk to the sink without spitting it out all over my office floor.
You thought for sure you were
Oh, yeah. And from then on, every milk that, when you buy a small milk like that from anywhere, I smell it before I drink it.
I mean, you never think the small one would get you.
No, but man.
God, how long ago was this?
Oh, 20 years.
Was this like the old school little cartons?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was
So
the
just the
little
old
cartons.
school, just peel it, fold it back, and
exactly,
you're ready to rock.
Like school, Oh
my God.
And because
so this is after a long day on the railroad.
this was after a long night.
A long
so
night
this
on the
was
railroad.
breakfast.
Okay.
Because I didn't pack
Coming in
lunch
hot for breakfast.
Yeah, and so I just thought, hey, some zingers.
Good Lord. I used to love zingers.
And none of that stuff tastes the same anymore.
Yeah. And it's all smaller, too.
It's all
Yeah,
smaller,
it's all
and
completely
it doesn't
different.
have all the stuff that's bad for you to make it taste good.
All the good lards and whatnot that
Yep.
were in there. That was the shit.
Yep, that was.
Hey man, I just went ahead and started rolling because I know you and I we're just gonna talk. So I'll quickly welcome in my dear friend Jeff Beal. Jeff, I met Jeff randomly. How far do you think you were in 2018 outside of retirement? How long had you been retired when I met you? I think that was 2018. So you were still pretty early in the retirement age. And just for my half of the story, I was starting in my new career venture at Crafted 1979 in Mokina. I'm sure people that listen to the show have heard me talk about this place before, but it's a bottle shop that at the time only sold beer.
Yep.
And I had this lovely Coach Quenneville looking young man walking through the doors for the first time meeting him. It was probably a weekday. It was probably 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe.
Earlier.
Yeah, maybe earlier, right? And you had a wine bag in your hand.
I did.
That was filled with some stuff.
It was.
And you opened up that bag and plopped down 4 bottles of bourbon that I had never been in the same room with. And basically it was like, nice to meet you, new bartender. Here you go. And I immediately called Denver, who owns Crafted, and said, Denver, there's a gentleman here with booze, and we don't have a license for this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And he's like, well, put them under the bar or behind the bar, hide them, and make sure you drink some of them. I think it was, let's see, Elijah 21.
Yes.
Eagle Rare 17.
Yes.
Jefferson 23, maybe?
Jefferson
something.
20.
Jefferson's, okay. And then what was the other one?
Pappy
Oh,
20.
Pappy 15?
No, Pappy 20.
Pappy 20? Okay. Yeah, I think I still have a picture. I still have a picture with your smiling face sitting on the other side of the bar for me. So that is the day that I met Jeff Beal, and little did I know, I met the coolest guy that maybe ever lived. I don't know. I've talked to you a million times, and I feel like I've not heard half of what's ever happened to you in your life, but we talk all the time, and you are known to be the guy with a story. So even people at Crafter were like, you got to get Jeff on the show. Like, you got to book Jeff. Yeah. Like Rod and Kyle and them, they're like, who better to sit down with you? And you've been kind enough to bring us, yet another prize beverage to drink together. So cheers to you and thank you.
Cheers. Oh,
thank you.
welcome.
I mean, let's go ahead and start by talking about this delightful wine you brought me.
So the wine I brought tonight is, it's a favorite. It's called Quintessa. It's a Napa Valley Bordeaux blend. They have a very biodynamic property where they grow all their own grapes. They don't source any grapes. So this is Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Carmenere.
Is that considered a red blend, quote unquote, or is this this is something more?
No, this is a red blend, but they put 5 grapes in. Most Bordeaux blends are 4 grapes, and they pretty much consist of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. Sometimes the Petit Verdot is substituted with Malbec. Okay, so there's your Bordeaux's. If you're a French wine drinker, that is a Bordeaux blend.
So what made you like even care about wanting to know these things about wine? Obviously, you've built a nice little collection over the years. Like, do you remember when you started really like diving in?
Yeah, 2007, we went to a wine tasting at the wine shop in North Myrtle. So
Myrtle Beach.
Yep, a lot of people know that I had the house in North Myrtle Beach.
You're going to hear Jeff refer to Myrtle Beach.
So Sue and I were there. We were driving back, and it said wine tasting. I'm like, shall we? So we go in, and we meet the manager, Chuck, and we enjoyed the wine tasting. I remember Schweiger cab, very, very nice cab. At the time, 2007, I remember the guy was selling it for $50. And it was very tasty.
$50 would have been quite a hefty bottle.
And I can't remember the vintage at that time, so probably in 2007, maybe he was bringing in like an 05. So we stayed there and drank the wine, bought a few bottles. Sue flew home, and I ran an errand for my mom. And I was coming back, and this was on a Friday. And I stopped in to see what was on the wine tasting menu for Saturday. That's when he was doing the wine tastings. And Chuck was in there by himself.
I like Chuck already.
Yeah, Chuck's a cool guy. And that Friday night, I left the wine shop at 9:30 after Chuck and I had drank 5 bottles of wine.
Holy shit.
And
that's a lot of wine for a couple of boys.
It was.
Like, what was your wine experience up until then? Like what were you like? I just like it, or it's a dinner thing, or it's
Yeah, more with meals and whites. So Rieslings, Gewürztraminers, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay. Didn't know that much about reds. Sue and I had gone up. We used to do these trips around Michigan. We'd drive up the coast of Michigan. We ended up in Traverse City. And then the peninsula in Traverse Bay, there's a lot of vineyards up on that peninsula. And I remember we went to Chacon. It's actually Madonna's dad has a...
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has a vineyard up there.
That's wild.
Yeah.
In Michigan.
Yeah. And they're really known for their whites because it's like the same parallel for Chardonnays as the region in France.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
so it's on the same level.
Yeah,
okay.
So there's a lot of whites up there. But we had a red from him, and it was pretty tasty. And that was kind of my first exploration into red. Once I went to the wine shop with Chuck, it was...
It was over.
It was over. It was all reds. And that night we drank an Elise Eagle Point Ranch Zin, which I would love to be able to get my hands on some more of that. But, that was such a good wine.
It's like such a wine novice. When I hear Zin, I think of like the shittiest wine. You know what I'm saying?
You think of White Zinfandel
right,
from the 70s in the disco era.
Yeah.
But Zin's a great wine with spicy food. I remember Matt was asking me one time about game, and he goes, "What's a good wine with game?" I said, "Oh, definitely a
Matt. Matt who?
Matt. Oh, Matt and Jess.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Grisetta.
Yeah, the man.
Yeah. And
God, he's learned a hell of a lot about wine.
He has.
Shout out to the Wine Thief in Frankfurt if you're local. Go to the Wine Thief, check it out. That man is very passionate about drink and food, and if he's serving it and if he's letting people consume it in his restaurant, it's probably pretty fucking good.
Yeah. And he just put in a new kitchen to upgrade his food.
That's amazing.
So, but Zin will go with like definitely wild game and things that are you have a little spice to them. To me, Cabernet and blends go with anything. I'll drink them with anything. And so, Chuck was the one who introduced me into, and that night we were drinking wines in the $35 to $50 price range. We've now gone to wines up to the $500 price range.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I know it
You
gets
guys are ridiculous.
It gets, it does get ridiculous.
Well,
But
remember that was like the basis for our fun little wind up Wednesdays, right?
Yeah.
We kind of started in one price range and we kind of
Yep.
escalated up through I don't know. I think maybe the one bottle you brought in was probably $150 bottle or something. I think the last bottle or is that this one?
That's this one.
Okay.
Your very
Yep.
first wine when we opened the Quintessa, and it's amazing the price of wine, especially after the pandemic. How wines that I would buy for $90 to $110 are now $150 to $175.
Holy shit.
I know, and it's and hey, I bought a lot of wine before I retired.
So much
And-
so much drinking during the pandemic. I don't know, is that part of it? Is it just commodities? Is it collecting things? Is it
I don't know, because now during the
crazy.
pandemic, you could get wine below cost. Because my friend Steve, and we'll talk about Perrones and
Oh,
all these
man.
islands.
I dream about Perron sometimes. I wish I could go there one day.
He was getting all this wine, like $60 to $100 bottles of wine. He's like, Jeff, do you want some? $25. And the reason being is
What a deal.
the wine was out there to be consumed, but nobody was consuming it because, as he explained to me, the three big markets were shut down: New York, Las Vegas, L.A. Those are your you think Chicago, but those
Right.
three are the biggest wine markets when you're looking at high-end wines.
That makes sense,
The
yeah.
average person doesn't walk into Binny's and go into the cellar and buy a $200 bottle of wine. Now, they have them in there because people do buy them.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah,
It's a
no.
very small percentage that might shop there.
Right.
Yeah.
But people who know good wine are going to drink good wine. And then I've totally spoiled people by turning them on to good
Terrible.
wines, and they're like, "Oh, this is not what I normally drink." And
You're ruining people. You're too generous. That's
one
why.
glass at a time.
You're too generous. That's why. See?
And it was funny. This wine, I received a postcard in the mail about wanting to get into their wine club, and I had never heard of it before. And I called my friend Chuck. I'm like, Chuck, I said, I got a postcard from Quintessa, and they want me to, participate in their wine club. And he's like, what? He goes, I've never heard of anybody getting a postcard from Quintessa to buy their wine. I'm like, should I? He goes, oh, that's a great bottle of wine. You should. And
How do you think they found you to?
I
what are
don't
the
know.
odds?
I really don't know.
That's interesting.
And that was even before I started subscribing to Wine Spectator. So, they didn't.
Where did the
they
connection
didn't-
come?
Right, they didn't pluck me off the Spectator mailing list.
That's wild.
So, they were the first wine club that I joined, and up until this fall, were the only one I was still in.
Oh wow!
And I get 3 bottles every year.
Stood the test of time.
But it's just such a great bottle of wine. And like I said, when I brought that over,
Mind blowing.
when the shop was closed and left it on the table for you,
Mind blowing.
and then you did a little podcast from inside the shop when you're like, I haven't washed a glass in a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was a good one right there.
But this was
a beautiful bottle.
So I've been in this club the longest of any of them. And I just really enjoy it.
So what do you pay, an annual fee or something?
No,
when you get
you-
your 3 bottles, or
you-
you just
you-
pay
they-
per bottle?
You pay for the 3-pack.
Okay. And you get them all at the same time?
And
or?
they come in a nice wooden box.
Oh, that's cool.
For what you pay for them, the wooden box.
Yeah.
And and then they give you a little history of this year's, what's going on with this particular vintage.
Well, that's the other thing is you have a pretty good knowledge base of it too. I remember the first day we actually sat and consciously drank wine together at Crafted, on a Wednesday. You had a lot of information on. You kind of spouted off a little bit about the grapes and stuff here for this specific bottle, but you seem like you've really accumulated knowledge over the years on how everything works.
I read.
Yeah.
Read and taste. Those are the 2 things, and I really enjoy the California cabs. I mean, they're big and they're bold, but I also like them aged at least minimum 7 years.
So what does your palate perceive like the aging? What does the aging bring to you?
Some of them taste like you're drinking velvet.
I like that.
It's just that incredible, soft, supple, smooth. Not you drink them young, you'll get a little bite, and some people like that.
Okay.
Some people like that bite. But for instance, again, we'll go back to Perone. Steve turned 65 this year, and I happened to be in Myrtle Beach for my 69th birthday. Thursdays is when I go to Perone's. So Thursday night we drank Scarecrow. Now, it's funny. Kyle, our friend Kyle Nat. He always teases me about
Kyle
my
Nelson,
Scarecrow.
the best.
Because he asked me, she's like, Jeff, what's the most expensive wine that you own? And I'm like, oh, easy, my Scarecrows. And, then they're like, well, how much did you pay for your Scarecrows? I'm like, okay. I'm not bragging here, folks. But at the time when I was buying my Scarecrows, starting with the 2012 vintage, they were $300 a bottle. And my allotment...
Right, I thought you were going to go crazier than that.
No, and my allotment, again, was a 3-pack. So, and when I was working, once I retired, then no more Scarecrow.
Then it was fixed income.
Yeah, and then my wife would kill me, But, I didn't drink the first one till it was 10 years old.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so drank the first 2012 in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, my God, it was everything.
Wait, was that bottle you're referring to in Perone's?
No, in Perone's we drank, for my birthday we drank a 13, for my birthday we drank a 13, and for Steve's birthday we celebrated when I got back, we drank a 14, and both of those were 100-point wines.
So what was the, what made you pop the first one? When you popped the 12, what was the occasion? You remember? Or you're just like, I got to try one of these bitches. It hit 10 years old.
Right. That was it. And also, we were actually in the dining room at Perone's.
Okay.
So when I go to Perone's, I sit in the kitchen.
Right.
And, usually the first thing I ask is when I get in there, I'll see Louisa or Kelly, servers. I'm like, it's Thursday. Do we have busboys? Nope, you're it. I'm like, okay. So I start baking bread. I start, checking. I'll go out into the restaurant and check, the tubs where the dishes are, and
you're basically just working,
but
also enjoying.
I bring the wine, and Steve spoils me with just incredible food.
Yeah, I'd love to go through that relationship too, but I had other places I wanted to go. We'll probably hit them all. We'll be ping ponging all around, I'm sure, while we chat tonight. But the wine thing was cool. That was something that you and I discovered like when I was just about leaving Crafted to move on the wine thing, because obviously our basis, it started in bourbon a little bit, but it was beer because the place you were coming into was drinking beer. And that's how you and I started to build our relationship and spend hours, across from each other on the bar sipping big stouts or IPAs and things like that we had on draft.
Or the little act bottles.
Oh my God. Denver used to make Denver's like you can't keep bringing in Pappy bottles and whatnot. He had to start bringing them in little act mouthwash trial size bottles to slide them over to me so I could try some special stuff.
And and that all started with having to put, like when you flew and did carry on and had to put your toiletries in a Ziploc.
3 ounces or whatever it was.
I would,
under.
Eldon, a guy that I worked with, he was when I was the union general chairman, he was the union general chairman for the CS16 Northern, the old Conrail guys. And he's the one who got me into bourbon. Okay. And then I started getting into...
What year was this? You think you
2009.
Okay, so you were already starting the wine.
I was into the wine, so I got all those guys into the wine. So when we would go out to dinners, and like the lawyers would take us out to dinners on these big meetings, and they're like, whatever you guys want, and they would, and we were going to Ruth's Chris, we were going to Eddie Merlot's, the lawyers would take you out and spend money. and you'd have all these great steaks and stuff like that, and then the
We're gonna drink bullshit, that's
right.
for sure.
And the server, the waiter, usually there are waiters, sometimes waitresses, they'd come up and like wine list, and everybody would point to me and go, "He's our sommelier," and they're like, "Okay," and then I would go through and like, I always looked at value. I don't want, just because I'm spending somebody else's money, I'm not buying a $500 bottle of wine that I know I can buy at Binny's for $200.
That's an old school mentality right there, Jeff. Very honorable.
And so if I could find something that the markup wasn't crazy, if it was 100% or less, because sometimes depending on the restaurant you're in, markups are 200%, and that's where they make their money, is on the cocktails in the wine list.
But if you have a breadth of knowledge of the subject, it's like you can actually make those assessments on the fly for everybody else that's sitting there, so everybody gets good enjoyment for value, best value, and best version of the value there.
The one thing, the only thing, there was a lot of really good wine in there, but a lot of current vintage. So, 3, 4, maybe 5 years old, and that was the thing I would always ask. You're keeping them in a cooler cellar. Oh yeah. Everything's, the high-end restaurants are doing that. The other restaurants, they're on the shelf and you don't know how long they've been there. They, proper storage makes a big difference in aging your wine.
So with wine, we would talk about laying down a beer or something. I don't think it's quite as advanced or intricate to craft beer and barrel-aged stouts and stuff. But wine what's like the temperature, what's the temperature effect? Like if it's stored at room temperature somewhere on a shelf in a dank basement, what does that do to the wine aging?
I wouldn't want to do it for 10 years. Okay, it's just going to age a little faster. I shouldn't say that age faster, but when you start getting to that peak, like a wine like this, you could probably keep for 20 years in a cellar at 55, 57 degrees, and it would just be like, wow.
What if you kept it for 30? Like, when does it start to decline, I guess, is what I'm really asking. Like, when
I don't know, because I've never. I will tell you this: the oldest wine I have in the cellars is a French Bordeaux in the cooler in Myrtle Beach, and it is a 2000.
Okay, what's keeping you from opening it?
I just never did. But I think what I'll do is wait till it's 25 years old
and just see science.
But French wines are made to age for 20, 30, 40 years. It's the way they bottle it. It's that much I've read. But now the California cabs, they're doing the big ones. They're doing the same thing with those, 20 to 30 years.
So what's the makeup that makes them more? Is it the water? Is it the grape? Is it the process that they're going through?
It's definitely the process. It's just the winemaker. It's the winemaker really knows what they're, when it's time to, it's like the big hydrometer that they stick down in the barrel and they, pour out glasses and they're like, okay, it's ready to bottle,
it's a feel.
Right. And some people may bottle it a little young, so it's got plenty of time, so you can keep it for 20 years, 30 years. Those are a special breed of people,
Yeah,
it's like,
geez.
if I was 29 and had gotten into wine like I did when I was,
right,
in 2007. So, at that time,
time's a ticking.
Yeah. It's like, that's my wife. We can't keep these bottles. We're getting old. We can't keep these bottles for 10 years.
Does she drink them with you usually?
Oh,
Does
yeah.
She like them?
Oh,
She's
yeah.
a big fan?
Yes.
Yeah, I love to hear that. That's good.
And, one of the things, the job I had before I retired, I was on 24-hour call. So I was not one of these. I drank on holidays and vacations.
You had to play it real safe.
Yes. So that's how wine got, I ended up with 300 bottles in the basement.
Holy shit. That's where the backstock started happening.
Yeah. And then
that makes total sense though.
Once I retired, then we started drinking them. And, and I replace them. I buy wines, from Vintners, and there's a website called Benchmark Wine where they buy collections of people. Like let's say, I've got a 500 bottle collection and I pass away and my kids don't even like wine. Boom. They sell them to these places. And then, I go on there and look, and, I'm always looking, and it's like, oh, that's a 10-year-old wine that's the same price as the current vintage at Binny's. Yes, I'm going to buy those.
Somebody already did the aging for me.
Exactly. And
I'm already having problems just letting this warm up. I'm like, I'm ready to drink it.
Drink it. There's more in the bottle. So there. I mean, that's just the process. You can, the high end wines that are coming out of California. It's like I have a friend. He's like, I got to have a Screaming Eagle one time, and I look at Screaming Eagle on Benchmark Wine, and this vintage is 100-point wine, but one bottle's $3,500.
Jesus Christ! I mean, like what's the equivalent for like your Pappy Van Winkles, things like that in the wine world? Like the name I always hear is like Opus One. Like what is why is Opus One garnered such a?
I think because there was a lot of hype in, what's the word I'm looking for? They got it out there. They got it out there to the people, the advertising.
Just the promo, just the propaganda on it.
And it's a wine that's made with Baron von Rothschild, French, and I can't think of who the American partner is. Maybe Robert Mondavi. I could be wrong, but I think so. They came and put that wine together, and I personally, I've never had it.
Oh, really? Okay.
I've never had an Opus. But
I'm kind of shocked that you've never had it, to be
just
honest.
because there's so many other wines out there that I don't need. That's like chasing the hype.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've heard people say it's okay. I'd rather have a good Beringer Reserve.
A Beringer Reserve.
Beringer Reserve. Their Cabernet, their Reserve Cabernets. Oh man! And you think of Beringer. I mean, $20 bottle of
isn't
wine.
That like that's like your common grocery store type bottle of wine, right? I thought I was conflating the brands when you said that. I was like, no way, he's talking about the same wine I'm thinking of.
Yes, no, I am.
But they have like a reserve roll.
Those Reserve Cabs when I first started drinking them were only like $75, $80, and they were absolutely delicious. And but again, they've gone up there. Up in the 100 and a quarter now. Ooh. It's just. I mean, you can
pricing me out.
Yeah, you can play that. You're right. You can play that wine game. But you know what? There's great wine made in all price ranges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the problem is when you get into this, you get spoiled because you just And as we sit here and the wine warms up and it opens up and the flavors change, and it's kind of like when stouts warm up,
right?
How the adjuncts come through, and it's a different mouthfeel, cold, cool, room temperature.
Yeah, and I'm such an infant with this wine thing, but I just love it more and more, And I've got a couple of guys that I do text, when I'm like, hey, $20, what do I look to, So I've gotten some good recommendations from a friend of mine, Bill, that put me on to, he's like, hey, you're getting cheap, looking for stuff that's on sale regularly, like Juggernaut's fine. A bottle of Juggernaut, I get at Mariano's for $15 sometimes, whatever. Mateus, he put in like a Spanish blend that he likes, Juan Gil, like some of the different ones there. But they've worked out really well for like Shannon and I for dinner stuff, all that. Because we're not like overly big wine people, but man, I can see where it would go if I kept going, if I keep going.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you this story real quick. Shout out to those guys. So Bill Chura and Kunal Chopra, good friends of mine. I met them in the beer world as well. You remember Tommy? Yeah. Tommy that used to work at Iron and Glass, used to come out by us all the time, worked for Standard for a little while. Tommy introduced me to a lot of these guys, and they came into Workforce the other night when I was bartending, and they have a 7-year tradition, the two of them and another guy, where they blind, they pick a bottle from their collection, and they I think it's like a $50-ish limit at this point, and they get in a hot tub together with brown bags over all 3 bottles, and they drink all 3, and then they pick a winner.
Okay.
So They came 2 hours, 3 bottles of wine in, then came, drank some beer. Wanted me to come out with them for old fashions at one of the other spots once we closed. So I got to hang out with them. I'm like, what? How did you guys develop this tradition? 3 dudes in a hot tub drinking, and they said that with the same bottle, and it was a nicer Zinfandel of some sort. It's won twice in the last like 3 years. So the one guy forgot that the other guy had brought it and won with it, and then boom again. So it's kind of cool to hear that it's actually showing out that, like, yes, that this is what they like, because you tend to read labels, you tend to think of,
right.
You know what I'm saying? So anyways, that was just a quick little side wine story about dudes in a hot tub.
Yeah, and I'm thinking they had wine in the hot tub, then they came and had
104
beer,
degrees, 104 degrees, 3 bottles of wine.
You said old fashions,
and some art history lagers too. While they were doing that, while pounding chips, that was a good time. That was fun. It was fun to be around with guys on that level. But yeah, that's the guy I usually text when I don't know why I don't text you. I mean, I probably think of you as like dabbling too high.
Have you guys drank 14 Hands?
Oh yeah.
14 Hands is that vineyard. Great, Washington wines for a good price. It's interesting. Like in Spectator, they'll have recommended, highly collectible, and then good buys.
Okay. So
and they're all
budget type stuff,
right? Almost. And they're all rated point wise, and 14 Hands is in there a lot with their Cabernet, with their blend, their hot to trot blend, getting 90 points.
Yeah.
Which
pretty good score.
All out
of 100, right?
This is a 97 point wine. I
tastes like it.
Before I brought it, I dug in and looked for the little brochure that came with it, to see, what they rated it. They talked about the making of the wine and stuff like that. And when you start looking at, in Wine Advocate and Wine Spectator, 96 and above is just excellent. And then 90 to 95 is very good. Mm-hmm. So
exceptional.
And it's like there's Joseph Phelps. They make a wine called Insignia. It's a cab-driven blend. Every year it's different. And it might be 3 grapes, sometimes 4 grapes. Sometimes it's 80% cab, sometimes it's 95% cab.
Okay.
And they make a lot of that wine, 25,000 cases. But it consistently gets 95 points and above.
Just hitting it out of the park every time.
Yeah, it's just amazing that they do that with that wine. And that wine, when I first joined the Phelps Wine Club, I could buy it on futures for like $140.
Okay.
And you will see that wine in good steakhouses a lot. But now you're talking, in a steakhouse, $300 a bottle.
Oh yeah, no.
And probably more because
right?
it's probably in Binny's it's up to $250.
So it's definitely not $300 at the steakhouse. Yeah,
yeah.
It's
but
definitely $400 or $500 at that point.
Usually, like I'd have to look Quintessa. I'm not sure how many cases per vintage.
Okay.
But trust me, it's not 25,000.
They're not making that many.
They're not making that many.
That's good.
I
like a nice rare drink.
Yeah, and I've drank wines where there's only been 100 cases made.
Oh, Jesus. Well, see, that's a whole nother level right there.
It is.
It's like how much of it is the taste, and do you think it's the best taste, or is it like the rarity is something to be said for that on top of it? So, your mind plays a lot of tricks on your palate, vice versa. The stories behind them, all that.
One thing I have to tell you, wine wise, before we, segue into other things, there's a vineyard in Washington State called Cayuse, and they make Syrah, and they make really good Syrah. It's not an expensive wine, $100 a bottle. I don't think I consider that not an expensive wine, and I got on their waiting list, and I was on their waiting list for almost 15 years.
Oh, damn.
Before I got the email saying, you have an allotment.
You did it.
And I'm like, wow. Because I would get emails, in the last couple of years saying, you're getting close. And they're, they make. I didn't realize how many different Syrahs they made until they sent me the email saying you have an allotment of this and this, and I'm like, I'm buying them. I'm getting my 3 of this and my 3 of this.
No question.
I waited so long, I wasn't going to say no.
Hell no.
But I was surprised that they have at least 7 or 8 different Syrahs, and their flagship is Bionic Frog.
Oh,
and it's got this.
That's a great
I
name.
know, and it's got this cool. All the
what
other
hops
labels,
are in that? That's Bionic Frog.
and it's got such a great label on it. All the others just have the yellow label with the Cayuse name and their how it's their logo and what vineyard it is. But the Bionic Frog.
I would love to know the backstory behind that name.
Yeah.
Bionic Frog. What would drive you to do that and then put like a different label on it?
Yeah. Why did you name your wine Bionic Frog?
It's pretty incredible. So I mean, I got to know fully retired wine and bourbon craft beer Jeff. That's the guy I've known for the better part of probably 7 years almost now, in that ballpark.
Yeah.
So I mean, how did you? Were you an Illinois boy? Did you grow up here?
Nope.
I mean,
Pennsylvania boy.
Okay, so that's the origin story. You're a Yinzer.
Yeah. Grew up suburbs of Philadelphia.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah. Suburbs of Philadelphia, Ridley Park.
Oh no! So you're born and raised?
Yeah, born and raised in Ridley Park.
So tell me a little bit. What was childhood like? What was growing up
Ridley
at the
Park
time?
My childhood, you could run around the neighborhood without people yelling at you for cutting through their lawn. You could go out and play, and we could walk to the lake and fish. The same lake had, a great hill to sled in the winter. You were probably, a mile or better through the neighborhood and to the lake to go fish.
Was it like a rural or like a suburban type?
It was suburban.
Town? It was very
it was suburban,
like modern suburban kind of.
Yeah, but just suburbs of the '60s.
Whole different ball game.
Whole different ball game. Now, and we moved from there when I was 10, so we were walking to the lake at 7 with our fishing poles.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now they're wanting to throw your parents in jail for letting you walk a mile to the fishing hole at 7.
Right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they just built ponds in every subdivision now, so the kid can go out the back door. So what's like just kind of common, normal, like mom and dad, and what mom and dad do? Like what was?
My mom was a housewife. My dad also worked for the railroad.
Oh no shit.
Yeah. He was in a different department.
You were born into it.
Yeah, he was a machinist. So he worked on the engines. And my grandparents were there. My Aunt Jenner, my mom's sister, my cousins, they were, not far away. Philly was cool because, you always hear people talk about we had Philly cheesesteaks.
Yeah.
I mean, a true Philly cheesesteak, you cannot beat a real Philly cheesesteak.
Real one?
A real one. You got to have the Amorosa dough.
What is a real one? Right? Because, now it's Geno's and it's...
No.
Cheese Whiz.
They do Cheese Whiz in Philly, and there's a big argument between Provolone, which is my favorite, and Whiz. But, it's like cheese out of a jar is not cheese.
Sure it is. How dare you?
Cheese out of a jar is not cheese.
How dare you? I'm just curious, first of all, you're probably one of the most friendly people that I've ever met. I've never seen you not want to talk to anyone. You know what I'm saying? Like you've never had anybody. It doesn't matter which one of us would bring a new person around. You would be like, boom. You think Jeff knew him for 10 years already. So I'm just curious. Like, did that come from mom and dad? Like, was one of your parents more social, one of them less social?
I think they were both social in that. One thing I'll always remember, like in the summer, our back door came off out of the side of the house, and our next door neighbors, as kids, we called them Aunt Frances and Uncle Alex. Their back door faced my mom and dad's. Well, that seemed to be the neighborhood spot where everybody brought their lawn chairs and sat between the houses after dinner. Aunt Mary and Uncle Paul. I can't remember I can't think of her name, the lady next door, and people down the street, across the street. We'd come back from running around catching Japanese beetles, fireflies, whatever that. And, there were 15 people in between the houses, and 2 houses down were Aunt Mary and Uncle Paul. And, here's something that, people don't think about in Illinois. In Pennsylvania, you can't go to the grocery store and buy beer. You have to go to the beer Back then, you had to go to the beer distributor.
So there was all the different tiers, not like the 3-tier system here.
Right.
You go.
And Uncle Paul owned a beer distributorship.
Oh, shit.
So there was always beer.
Let's go, Uncle Paul.
Yeah, and so he supplied restaurants and bars. That's where the kegs came from. That's where the bottles came from. All of that because, again, I'll talk to people your age, we'll just throw out like Kyle, Zach, and Nick's, and I'm talking 12-ounce long neck returnable cases, and they're like, what? And when that's how you bought your beer. If you bought a case of beer, it was in long necks, a case of long necks, and those cases were awesome. I mean, you could stand on them. I used them. I had speakers,
Were they actually closed, or were they open at the top? Were they like cartons, or were they like...
They closed up, folded in like wings.
And they were cardboard?
Oh, they were heavy-duty cardboard.
Like corrugated?
They were like waxed cardboard.
Okay.
Okay.
Real deal.
Yes, and had dividers in there, and then, that's why...
And then when you drink a beer and you put the bottle
back in there. Yeah.
And then you go drop it off yourself, or does somebody come pick it up?
No, you would go and exchange it, like doing, help yourself.
Need another beer.
Yeah, it just like you used to exchange 8 packs of pop.
Okay.
You'd take them in, get the deposit. It was the same thing with the 24-ounce or 24-pack of 12-ounce long necks.
Well, that was a cool part of my childhood too. My dad worked for Kemmer Bottling, and so he would be bringing home Dr. Pepper, and they had like the first Snapples when Snapple was invented. They were bottling it over there. So that was like we always had like Dad's root beer and soda in the house. It was crazy. It was always a perk for my dad.
Oh yeah.
But those were just like the flats, 24-pack plastic ring 6-packs.
Okay, yeah, and again, beer came in cans back then. But with the rings,
with the
pull tabs, where the whole thing came off.
Yeah. Wow.
People don't even remember that.
So what? These people would just gather and just drink some beers in between the houses.
Iced tea, guys drinking beers, just
solving the
world's problems. And my dad would always go down to the swamp and get cattails and let them dry, and those were your mosquito deterrent.
Oh, really? That worked too?
Oh, that works great.
Really?
Yeah.
We got to bring that back.
Yeah.
We got to bring that back. I'm so tired of these goddamn mosquitoes. I mean, it's winter now, but
yeah.
But you know how it is in the summer. It's gross.
Yeah. And then, it was just a great suburban, it was funny. Going to grade school, I lived on the side of the highway where we took the bus. Majority of the people I went to grade school with all walked, and they used
But you guys were separated by the highway.
And so if you were on my side of the highway, you took the bus. If you're on the school side of the highway, you walk back into it'd be like if the school was down here in this big empty field that I noticed when I was coming in here, and you would be the highway would be black. So if I was on the other side of black, I didn't cross the highway, I took the bus. And it was like a city bus, and it was only one. I went around and picked up the everybody. There was only one. All of, everybody got on there. And because I remember going to the bus station to get the tickets, we had to have a ticket.
Oh, damn. You
had to have a ticket to ride the bus.
Not like your public schools these days.
No. And and then, we moved from Pennsylvania when I was 10. And my dad got transferred. He got promoted and transferred to Cumberland, Maryland. Yeah. And as a
still machinist, still working on the...
Yeah. At that time, he was the ready track foreman. So he made sure that the engines were serviced and fueled for the train, to take the trains out.
Okay.
And they called that the ready track.
The ready track.
And we lived in Cumberland, in the city, and then out in LaVale, which was a suburb of Old National Highway, Route 40. Look that up in your history books, folks.
geez.
And we built a house in LaVale on the side of a mountain.
Oh, damn.
And let me tell you, as a 10-year-old kid, and you opened up your back door, and the only thing that behind you was woods to Pennsylvania, that was awesome.
Like, what? On the side of a mountain sounds so cool.
And it was, we sat up on the mountain, and then there was a mountain straight across from us, and then Route 40 ran down through there with the creek going into the Potomac River. And, so that was kind of like a little drop down, little valley, because water's always at the lowest point. The rivers are always at the lowest point, or they get to the lowest point eventually, and it was just, that was BB guns, bow and arrows, mini bikes.
Running wild.
But you were gone all day on a Saturday in the mountains, in the woods, running around, catching any and everything, And I remember we had one of the dogs we had was a Springer Spaniel, and he used to catch. He would hunt box turtles.
Oh, no shit!
Come back with a box turtle in his mouth.
Can't figure out that shell, but
bring that back to you.
Here's a gift for you, though.
Yeah, but that's when there were box turtles everywhere. Just wildlife was a little different than it is.
Yeah, especially you're living on the side of a mountain, Jeff.
Yeah, and it was just.
How do you build in that area?
Well, you know what it is.
Did he have contractors coming in? Was he building it with the family? Was everybody? Yeah,
right.
So.
I mean, my dad found a contractor, and you're
So you got to be a young teenager at this point, huh?
Oh no, I was only
12.
10.
Okay,
I was 10, and we lived there. That was 5th grade, and we moved from there between junior high and freshman year of high school. We went to Western Pennsylvania, which was rural, not living on the side of a mountain rural, but still rural. Yeah, had like a 2-acre lot. All the houses on the street had big 2-3 acre lots, in Western Pennsylvania. But yeah, Cumberland, that was fun.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
As a young kid, to be able to do all that, and you ran with the crowd that was from grade school to high school. Everybody hung out together. Brothers and sisters, and
it didn't matter.
Stuff like that. It didn't matter.
Big spread.
They would tell you, the older kids would tell you, okay, get out of here.
Yeah, it's time. It's time for you to go
we'll
away
hang
now.
and play baseball, and and do all the run through the mountains and stuff like that. But,
when it was time to do the teenager stuff, it was time. Get out of here.
But one of the fun things is I cut the grass for this guy, and he owned the drive-in. And he's like, you guys can go sit in the front row. So we'd go to the drive-in, and see every movie all summer long.
That's cool.
And especially as, a grade school kid and a junior high school kid, movies you probably shouldn't have seen, as a grade school kid.
Getting a little education.
Hey, I remember the double feature, Born Losers and Hell's Angels on Wheels. Because Born Losers was the first Billy Jack movie, and Billy Jack movies were huge in the 70s.
Oh, massive.
They were, and that's where the character, came into play. But, and then we were in Pennsylvania for a few years, and then in 1971, moved here.
Damn.
So I was.
Then you end up in this shithole.
Yeah. And I was a junior in high school.
Where'd you guys move to? What part of Illinois?
Homewood.
Homewood? Okay.
Homewood. So lived in Homewood, went to Homewood Flossmoor High School.
Oh, yeah.
Shout
out Homewood.
Yeah. And back when, your class had, because I'm a baby boomer, my class had 1,500 kids.
Holy shit. That's wild.
I know.
1,500 kids.
We had a monster,
That's so many kids.
The freshmen had their own building.
Yeah. That's wild. That's so. Even my class was 500. I thought that was a pretty good sized class, but now that they're building school, everything's got east, west, north, south.
Right, and Homewood had a big footprint with all of Homewood, all of Glenwood, all of Flossmoor, and then the Graymore section of Olympia Fields.
Okay.
So when I came from Pennsylvania to HF, it was a little bit of a culture shock in the aspect that. Everybody were just kids. I come here and you've got I mean, really, really rich kids. I mean, nothing like Wilmette and Kenilworth.
Yeah.
But
Right.
still very wealthy kids out of Flossmoor and Olympia Fields, and then just, blue collar families out of Homewood and Glenwood. But it didn't,
What a mix.
yeah, and you had jocks and socias and greasers and burnouts and,
Where was Jeff? Right? Where did Jeff fall
I
in?
just kind of fell into just, I guess, a normal kid,
Give me some high school Jeff. What's some high school Jeff stuff?
I mean, played, hockey.
Hockey guy. Okay.
Didn't, back then there was no hockey team. So it was just a bunch of guys getting together and playing.
Were you around for no, you wouldn't have been here yet for Bobby Hall and that group.
Oh yeah, no, I was here.
Were they still?
Yeah.
Still,
Oh
they were
yeah,
still
the
going when you
Blackhawks.
got
We
here?
were. Yeah, Bobby Hall was still playing for the Blackhawks. It was right before he left for the World Hockey Association and played with the Winnipeg Jets. When they poached him.
Mm-hmm. And then eventually,
But Tony Esposito,
yeah.
Stan Mikita.
Yeah, so you were local for those years. Huh? That's cool.
Oh, the redheaded kid, the defenseman, used to get in fight. Keith Magnuson.
Yeah.
Always, always getting in fights.
Number 3.
Yeah.
Number 3, I think.
Pat Stapleton, Whitey Stapleton.
Yep.
So
First round of championships.
Yeah.
God, we were lucky to get more of those when I was young. Well, not too young, but in my 20s, that was nice. That was nice. Get 3 championships, considering the way that the state of Chicago sports are right this second. It's nice to look back on some of the good old days.
Yeah, the Cubs weren't such a great team back then, but
no, hell no.
I mean, you tell people, attendance at Wrigley Field, they announce it 2,700.
Yeah. Oh my God. What some lean years there.
Yeah.
It's not the money mill it is now.
No,
wild.
not at all. So
high school Jeff's playing a little hockey. What's he doing? What else is he up to?
Chasing girls. Just hanging out with friends, playing basketball with the college kids who lived on the street. Just kind of, normal stuff. Caddied in the summer at Calumet Country Club, which is now closed.
Cal City.
No, Calumet Country Club was in Homewood.
It was on home, okay.
But that was just the name of it. It was, it was interesting. And, we were talking about this one day, either at Crafted or at Broship. Both Idlewild and Ravislow were Jewish-only country clubs. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah.
That was a thing.
That was a thing, and I mean, you had 5 country clubs within like a 5-mile radius. You had Olympia Fields, you had Flossmoor, you had Idlewild, you had Ravislow, and you had Calumet, and 3 of them were in Homewood. Ravislow, Idlewild, and Calumet were
a lot
all
of country
in Homewood.
clubs for one town.
Yeah, but the country club scene was a thing.
It was huge.
And I used to get in trouble because a lot of people that were members at Calumet Country Club were people I went to school with. So they'd be at the, after the 18th green, you walk past the pool, to take the clubs back to the clubhouse and set them up for your member, and then, head to the caddy shack, and, whether it was girls or guys hanging out at the pool, they're like, Jeff, come on back. So, I'd finish up and I'd go hang out at the pool, and then, other caddies would see me there and they'd rat me out to the caddy master, and and,
you doing smoking cigarettes and doobies, rolling some doobies with?
No, none of that. It was just you were
good old fashioned fun.
Hanging out with a member.
Okay.
And then they were feeding you because they just signed the chit.
To,
their dad paid for it, And I remember getting yelled at for that. It's like, geez, I mean, but these are my friends.
Hard to resist.
I go to high school with these people. They're like, come on over. I'm finished for the day,
But you weren't allowed to court.
Yes,
with all
I couldn't
folks.
commingle with members, as they say.
It would be uncouth. It
Now,
would be uncouth of you.
The guys who worked in the locker room, they could mingle. Us caddies, we were low hanging fruit, as they say.
You guys were the punching bags. What?
Yeah, and I mean, I enjoyed it. It was, it was fun because, you think about it, you did it 6 days a week. The club was closed on Monday, but that was caddy day. You could golf. You'd go to the pool. I didn't golf, and I could go to the pool during the weekdays with friends. So, I took my Monday off and didn't hang around at the country clubs.
Probably a good idea.
6 days a week was enough, But met some really nice, gentlemen and ladies there. A friend of mine that I played hockey with, his parents were members of the club, so I caddied for his mom a lot.
Oh yeah,
She was
ripping. She was ripping out those.
Well, they would play 9 holes. Her and her lady friends. They paid better than the men on 18. and so that was going to concerts.
Well, that's another thing about you, right? You big in the music. Like, you grew up in an era of amazing cars, amazing music.
Yeah.
Do you remember like your first car? When
my first car was just a '67 Mustang.
That's it.
It was nothing fancy. It had
Most
the
people
inline.
would like one of those.
It had the inline 6 instead of the 289. But you're right. There were a lot of people at school. A lot of guys who took auto shop. That there were a lot of nice cars, because you figure.
What do you see up there? You got one of something like these?
Yeah, there you go, right there, the red one, that one. Yep.
Yeah, like something like that.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So that's what you were working with, huh?
Yeah, mine was turquoise.
Yours was turquoise?
Mine was turquoise.
Hell yeah. Sweet color.
And then I went to a 1970 Volkswagen.
Oh shit!
Yeah. Oh man,
you
love
start
my
turning
Beetle.
into a hippie.
Oh, love my Beetle. That was such a great car.
That's funny that you have most people would be like, the Mustang's cool, and you're like,
the Mustang.
I missed
cool.
the Beetle.
Yeah, the Mustang was fine, but that Volkswagen, man, Volkswagens were fun, and they were, back then they were everywhere. But,
oh yeah.
I mean, like every 5th car on the highway was a Volkswagen.
Oh shit. I mean, I can't believe you see the van that they're doing now, like that van they brought back, that modern version of it. Interesting, huh? My dad was always a van guy. He always had them. He had Jeeps and vans when he was young, Then he got married, and my mom made him get rid of all of it.
Oh yeah,
he had like 3 or 4 cars at once at one point. Like, he had a mud and Jeep and a drive around, a truck and a van. My mom was like, no more of that. No more of that fun living.
Then a friend of mine, she worked at the AMC dealer. That would have been the Heights Olympia Fields there on Route 30 west of Western.
Okay.
And she calls me up. She goes, I got a car in here you need to see. And I'm like, okay, this would have been 1977. And I was living in Stager. I was in my second house in Stager, because Stager was where I could afford when I moved out of the house. I could live in the Heights, but it's like, I don't want to live in the Heights.
Where were you? What were you doing at that point? Were you working for the railroad?
Oh yeah,
already?
I started
just
working for the railroad
starting out
in 1974, in May of '74.
Okay. So like right out of high school, or like
I went
in
to
high
college
school?
for a year, and it just wasn't my thing. So
Where'd you go?
Indiana State, down in Terre Haute.
It's Sycamores.
Yep,
Sycamores.
The Fighting Trees.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went over to see her, and there was a cute little British racing green TR6.
Hold on, I'm not familiar with this car. I want to see.
Oh,
what is it? The TR6?
TR6. It's a 2-seater.
What year was it? Do you remember?
1975.
It was a 1975.
Yeah, 76 was the last year of the TR6.
All right, what do we
had
got
little
here?
What am
I? Am I on the right track?
There you go, the green one.
The green. This one right
No,
here.
that's 2 green.
Oh, that different green.
Yeah, the other green.
Oh, I'm messing this one up.
I think it's.
Oh, like this darker foresty.
There you go. That's my car.
Oh shit! So
That's my car.
So this is what you were rolling around.
Oh, I
in
was
for a
rolling
while.
around in that. Yeah,
I love it.
I had fun in that car.
Little rag top and everything,
Yep.
huh? Nice.
I remember putting the roll bar in there. It really that really jazzed it up. It looked good with the roll bar in there.
Jazzed it up a little bit.
And yeah, I remember when my friends from college got married in upstate New York. I climbed in that thing and drove to upstate New York. Yeah.
Oh shit.
And man, the roads in upstate New York are like driving on pool tables. They were awesome.
Really?
They didn't believe in potholes.
No.
No.
That's awesome.
Oh, it was. I mean, you could just.
You think it's still like that now? I bet it's all gone to shit.
I have no idea.
What's up there in upstate New York? Where's like isn't there like was like the rich part of it. You know.
Well, I mean, Eileen's family owned a farm, okay? And her father was very good friends with, I think his name was Earl Butts. He was the Secretary of Agriculture during the Nixon administration, I believe. And they were dairy farmers in Weedsport, which was
That'd be nice.
at the Finger Lakes region. The Finger Lakes region is between Buffalo and Syracuse, and it's a great area of New York. Apples, wine, white wine, and fishing in those lakes, because those lakes were very deep. So they were lake trout lakes, because lake trout like deep lakes. They like deep water.
The fishing. Yeah.
But that was, and they, and it was just an area I had never been to before. And, driving over, I remember I had started out
smooth as butter,
and a terrible storm came up. So I came back home, and a bunch of people had come over, and we were all partying, and, as everybody started leaving, and my roommate, he's like, all right, I'm going to bed. I'm like, fuck it, I'm driving to New York.
This is boring. I'm going to get in my car and go to New York. You're working on a whim, huh?
So I remember a girl I was dating, I had to call her like at 7 a.m. to get her up, because she was going, she needed, I forget why, whatever. So I got to New York and pulled into this, gas station, and got on the payphone and called her, and she's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm in New York. Already?
Yep. I just went for it.
And yeah, it was, and I'm thinking about how I drove there, and right now watching the news, Erie, Pennsylvania is getting like 5 feet of snow. and that's granted, this was in August,
Right.
But,
right. But it's getting hit right now.
And, 50 years ago. But yeah, I mean, could you imagine having 5 feet of snow?
No. I don't know if I've ever seen that. I watch Buffalo on the news every year get hammered.
Yeah.
And that's a spot.
Speaking of that, did you see the game on Sunday?
Yeah. I watched the little snow globe football. Yeah. You can't beat a good snow globe game. It's fun. It's fun.
And they were talking about how it was snowing 4 inches an hour. So during that game, they got a foot of snow.
How crazy. I love that Buffalo. They can just put out like a mass message to their fan base, and they just come and shovel all the snow for the game. They give them a ticket or whatever it is to come see the game.
And and when you watch them doing it, it's they're not bundled up like Green Bay is.
Yeah.
It's snowing at 30 degrees.
Lake effect snow.
Lake effect snow, and they just said it's going to be churning away. This still this week.
Yeah, it's like it feels like it never ends in Buffalo. But okay, sorry. We started talking about about your start with the railroad. So what did you start doing? Like how did you kind of, because I mean you were there for how many, 42 years. Okay.
So I started out.
Take me down this road.
I started down in the track department, laying track. As a skinny white kid with long hair. And man, let me tell you, you took shit for being a skinny white kid with long
really?
curly. Oh yeah, because I had hair down to my shoulders. And
at this point, are you like, I hear you tell stories and about time you going into the music room, with your buddy.
Oh, my buddy Tim. Yeah.
Tim, like just records and chilling.
Yep.
So when did you start developing that love for music like that?
I was in high school.
Just.
I was in high school when I started getting the music bug, and
is that where the long hair came from? Just like that time frame, that
it
feel?
It was more once college, because then I went to college and never got a haircut, because I didn't have my parents bugging me, get a haircut. Yep. All they could do is when you came home for a weekend, get a haircut. No,
just living free.
So. And then as I got, as I started working for the railroad, then I was able to, piece together a stereo. It's like, let me do my research. Let me go in. Back then,
no internet.
Yeah, right. No internet. You went to Musicraft.
You couldn't just.
You went to Musicraft.
Google it,
right? And listen to stuff, and saw what was in your price range. How much did you want to spend? You wanted a turntable, and you wanted.
Did they have like the nerds working there that you could add like the sound?
Oh yeah,
This is what you need.
There were people there who knew knew what they were talking about. There were people there that didn't, just salesmen, just sell
could
you
tell.
anything.
You could
but
tell.
I got hooked up with a guy named Mark, and he knew his stuff, and over the years. And then when I segued out of Musicraft, as far as like quality, maybe they went to to a line. You went to a little more high end store, and that was Audio. Oh, I can't. It was Frank's store, Audio Enterprises. And Frank had the cool stuff.
Like, what was the setup? The turntable, the receiver, an amplifier of some sort.
Right. Most people did a turntable, a receiver, and a set of speakers.
Like bookshelf,
Yeah, bookshelf or floor standing. I remember big ones were the JBL 100s. That was a good speaker.
Those the ones you wanted?
Yeah,
Those what everybody wanted?
I ended up getting what was called Heil AMT ones. They used just a different, what was it called? Oh man, it's been so long I can't think. It was like a transformer sat on the top. It squeezed air, and that's where you got your highs and your mids.
Okay.
And of course, then there was a 10-inch woofer, and then they came out with the AMT1Bs that had a 12-inch woofer. So I traded my AMT1s in and got the got the bigger.
Got to go bigger.
A little bigger.
Need a little more bass.
And then met a friend, and he was into it also, and he was the one who took me to see Frank at Audio Enterprises, and then so Frank had the Nakamichi cassette decks. Frank had the acoustic research speakers. He had the B&W speakers, which I have to this day.
Oh wow!
Bowers and Wilkins they were out of England. Revox.
What's playing in those speakers at this time? What can we catch you listening to?
What?
You probably still listen to it to this day.
Oh yeah. I just bought an album. It's called Strum and Thrum, and it was like some of the greatest jangle pop bands that I'd never heard of.
What the hell is jangle pop?
Jangle pop is like jangly guitar. So,
Okay.
You ever hear of the DBs?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Mitch Easter and Let's Active.
Nope. You're gonna just be stumping me one after another.
Alex Chilton.
But like a chingy guitar?
Yeah, like a lot of them played Rickenbackers because they had that, you could get that tone out of it. It's just fun.
It's like a slide almost.
Jangly, just great guitar riffs. And, I read about this in the paper, actually, because I still read the paper. And it was just a thing. So I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to get this. And yeah.
And jangle pop.
Jangle
I've
pop.
never heard that term. That's
Jangle
great.
pop.
That's
and,
great.
And what was funny, I was talking, because Tom over at Brothership.
Soltis. Tommy
Yes.
Soltis.
He'll always ask me, what are you listening to? Because he knows and I say,
He is a really lover of
Yeah.
music. He live music. Like he loves his music.
And I told him,
tunes.
this is what I'm listening to right now. And he's like, text it to me. So I, when I got home, I sent him a picture of the CD,
Mm-hmm.
and it was funny. Dan, who's the brewer over there, he's like, Jeff, jangle pop's still a thing. There's still bands out there that are doing,
Yeah.
But these are all bands from the early 80s, some of them made it, but most of them were just local, and it's very uplifting, upbeaty, Let's Active, Mitch Easter, the DB's early REM.
Okay.
Has that Peter Buck has that jangly guitar. Alice Chilton started with the box tops and then went to Big Star. So that and and I mean,
I got some research to do, Jeff. That's all I'm saying right now.
and and it was all some people call it like post punk. When stuff because when you talk about there music, there's good music out there today, but there's nobody ripping it like when the Clash, when everybody's oh, come on, the Talking Heads, when Talking Heads 77 came out with Psycho Killer and stuff like that. I mean, nobody's doing anything like that
Almost
anymore.
like people are trying to emulate it sometimes, but in like a
Yeah.
modern way. But nobody's like
But
really innovating in another
These people
space.
did it.
Yeah,
You know, these
yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and you had that whole crazy punk scene, you know, with so many bands, you know. I mean, there were the hardcore, you know. you want to watch the movie CBGB.
Yeah,
You know. That's
I'm familiar with CBG.
That's a great movie in the aspect of, you know, putting the bands on stage, you know, and you think that what the hell's the actor's name? He was the bad guy in Die Hard. Speaking,
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I know what you're
and
talking about.
he plays the, you know, the owner of CBGB's.
I gotta look it up now. You're making
And
me-
but you know, and then
Alan Rickman. Is that
Alan
what you're
Rickman,
thinking
yeah,
of?
you know, he plays a great criminal, and then he plays the
Also
you know,
Professor Snape in the Harry Potter series.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, you know, but, you know, going to the clubs in the city, I mean, the Ramones just, you know, for people who couldn't even play in the very beginning, you know, they were just blowing people
Just
away.
gotta get out. You just want to get on stage and entertain someone.
Yes.
Just looking to perform.
Yes. And, you know, seeing a bunch of those bands live in their early years. I remember going to the Park West for the Pretenders' first American tour.
Wow.
You know, and it was just the Pretenders were blowing people away with that first album, you know, and, you know, it's the same thing when I saw U2 on their first American tour. My roommate and I, we were in D.C. His folks lived across the river in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. And I remember we went to this place called the Bayou at the bottom of the hill in Georgetown and saw U2 for $3.
Holy shit.
$3.
Now you can see him at the Sphere for infinity dollars. I don't know how much it actually is, but
and you know, this was their first album, Boy, and the first time they, you know, came to the US, and it would just, you know, they say timing's everything,
fucking
you know,
Bono.
and yeah, and they were young. I mean, they were 18 and 20. Because that's their, you know, two of them are. They have
nuts.
a 2 year, you know, age gap
him and Edge,
between.
yeah.
Well, it could be him and Edge. It could be him and Adam Clayton. You know, but I do know from reading, 2 of them were 20, 2 of them were 18.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I see.
And it was such a, you know, such a great show.
Really? You remember it?
Well, because there was so much crazy stuff going on. And I remember. So Paul and I, Paul's my roommate. God rest his soul. He passed away a few years ago. You know, he was the best partner to get in trouble with, man.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
Well, how old are you guys at this point? Are you guys in your early 20s then?
Yeah.
Like
He moved in with me in 1978. So he turned 22. I turned 23.
Okay.
Those years. His birthday was August. Mine
Crazy
was
to think
October.
You're going to see a future legend of music that's 2-3 years younger than you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you and Paul are making Misfit.
So this would have been like 1980, okay? Because 79. Because what happened was Paul developed an ulcer. Don't ask me how, you know, a 21-year-old kid gets an ulcer.
Yeah.
But anyway, he ended up in the hospital, and there in the Heights at Old St. James. And then when he came out, he took off. Time off of work, you know, and he goes, I'm going to go stay with my folks. I'm like, okay. I said, you want to come with me? I'm like, yeah. So we drove to DC, and then I was there for like a week and a half and flew home. But anyway, so we go to Georgetown, and because Georgetown was the happening place. I think it probably still is, you know. And there was this, I remember there was like this clothing store, record store, punk rock store called Commander Salamander.
Commander
Salamander. And it's funny, one of the Russell, the bartender at Perone's, he's from DC. So when I told him, he's like, Jeff, I used to go to Commander Salamander, and he's a lot younger than I am. So it hung around in Georgetown for a long time.
Hey, is that it?
Commander Salamander. That is it.
That's funny.
That is it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You can Google anything these days.
Yes, you can.
Jesus.
But I just remember there was this hot blonde in there that Paul was,
It wasn't this one, was it? Look at see her down there. It'd be funny if that was actually her.
That would be.
Son of a bitch! You can really Google anything.
And so we had heard on the radio about. She goes, they're right down the street at the bayou, and I'm like, where is this? And she goes, down, Georgetown's up here, and it just drops down on this hill to the Potomac River, and right down there was the bayou. And so we go in and we go to that, and we're hanging out with her, and just at a table, watching the band, and there's this group of people at a table next to us,
like a little club indoors.
Yeah, it was just a little club. Yeah, just a small club, and it had 2 floors. And I think we were upstairs because that way you could, the stage was elevated from the first floor and then lower than where we were. And I remember there was this big guy, and he was talking to this girl at the table next to us, and she's like, no thanks, I don't want to dance. And he's bugging her, and she's like, is it you don't want to dance, or you don't want to dance with me? And she's like, no, I just don't want to dance. And I said, Paul, and he's like, what are you going to do? And I walked up to him and I slipped my arm through his, and I'm like, I'll dance with you. And it freaked him out. And off he went.
What's wrong with this guy?
And that's how I met this young lady. And we ended up going to the zoo to see the pandas, because the pandas had come to the Washington Zoo. And I remember we were driving, and we ended up going the wrong way down a one-way street, and we got pulled over.
Classic.
And I've got the map, so I've got the map, and the guy's coming, and he comes up to Paul. He's like, and he sees me with the map, and he sees her in the back seat. She's leaning through, the seats, and he's like, what is she, the gunner?
That's funny.
And he let us go, because we told him we were lost and we were going to the zoo. He says, well, you're definitely on the wrong street to get to the zoo,
Trying to see some pandas here.
Trying to see some pandas. And I just remember she lived in a commune outside of DC, where they girls influence things. That started my 3 years of not eating meat.
Oh, Jesus. So hot blonde got you, huh?
No, the hot blonde was Paul. This was a different girl.
Different.
Yeah. And we ended up going out a couple times. We went to the movies to see Altered States, which was just drinking some Rolling Rocks and being stoned and seeing Altered States on the big screen.
They got you?
Oh, man. That's have you ever seen Altered States?
No.
Oh, that's a strange movie with William Hurt.
Okay.
And something to do with like the saline think tanks, where you would float in those saline,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
still popular today.
Bizarre movie.
What was it called? Altered
States.
Altered States. That's it. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, they still do that. I mean, people actually buy those now. Like the tanks to deprivation tanks. Just, you get like room temperature water. There's tons of Epsom salt in them, and then you're supposed to feel like nothing around you. Basically like you're floating almost.
Yeah, but it went in strange directions. Who's the female lead?
Let's see. There's Blair Brown.
That's it. Blair Brown. She's the female lead.
Oh my God, freaking Drew Barrymore was in it probably as a child. Then I would imagine.
Well,
That's funny.
Because this would have been like 1980.
It's 1980.
And
yeah.
You figure, Speaking of that, the other night, Sue and I stumbled across E.T. And we watched that. And it's like, God, this movie was huge that summer when that movie came out. It was huge. And then you look at Drew Barrymore, how in Altered States was before E.T.
Yeah. And Shannon's sister, deathly afraid of E.T. Still to this day, as a 36-year-old woman, she's still deathly afraid of E.T. She cracks me up. I don't know why. He's never been threatening to me. I don't know. Maybe it was the age she was when it came out.
Okay, I got to say this is really opening up nice.
Oh, how about it?
As it's now it's not
I'm
as cold.
drinking
and
too much of it almost because
enjoy.
I'm almost flying through it.
I've got probably 4.
Temperature
I know that
is just right, man.
in this one, I bought 6.
Nice.
Because I knew
Hell
the
yeah.
the 2016
Double allotment.
vintage is such a great vintage.
Now, why is that? For this specific wine or for that grape
For that year
in California
in
specifically
Napa.
versus?
Yeah, 2016 is
It's like a peak year for California.
So like Wine Spectator will rate individual wines, then they'll rate the vintage, and this is like a 98 point vintage. So
what's another like modern vintage that's highly rated?
19s.
The 19s and 16s
19s are really, and I also believe the 20s.
Yeah. Pandemic
are very,
grapes.
but yeah, but no, that's not right. It's not 20s because 20s were the fire year. I think it's 21.
Okay.
But I know that 18 and 19. Yeah, here we go. We're going from all over the place.
I can't help myself, Jeff. I'm okay with it,
but
though.
like going back to wine, so you go from 2010 to 2019, and that 10-year vintage, there were 2 off years, 11 and 17.
What was the issue with 11?
I think a lot of rain.
I was thinking drought. I was thinking the other way.
No, the drought.
Yeah.
Drought stresses the grapes and really makes them
special.
Yes, or it could have been
pressure makes diamonds, Jeff. Pressure makes diamonds.
It could have been a heat spike in the summer that got the valley floor got to 100 odd degrees and it stayed there for a few days. Yeah, help yourself.
I mean, it's just so good.
And it's, and also maybe they had a heat spike in September, when you went to go right before harvest, but when you get a nice, even growing season with, as they say, no heat spikes, moderate rain, just enough rain to make the grapes stress a little bit. They don't get, if you get too much rains, they swell up too fast.
Okay.
They just it's like anything, it just, and that's bad for the skins. Or too much heat toughens the skin.
So it's just like there's a sweet spot in there. Mm-hmm. There's a sweet spot in there.
And 16 is definitely, so like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. For instance, I know that my 13 and 14 Scarecrows are 100-point wines. 15 is a 99-point wine. In those the 12 probably high 90s, but these guys don't throw out 100 points.
It's not like it's not a standard score,
right? You can get 98, 99, but when you hit that 100, it's
some exceptional shit going on.
Yeah, everything just comes together, and it's the winemaker, picking the grapes at the right time. He didn't pick too early. He didn't pick too late. And then, I keep talking about the Scarecrows, but an interesting thing about Scarecrow wine and why the J.J. Cone Ranch is he was one of the producers of The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That makes a whole lot more sense.
And they do 2 wines. They do the Scarecrow, and then the grapes. It's another Cabernet Sauvignon. The grapes that are not just, not the Scarecrow grapes, become the Monseigneur Etienne, which is Tin Man in French.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And then they were just voted.
So this is okay. This is like kind of.
Yeah, there's the Scarecrow, and you can see the label.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's people will definitely call that a cult wine, in the aspect that you'll never see it on a shelf in a store.
What's that? Is that the Etienne?
That's the backside of the Monseigneur Etienne. Yes,
okay.
And that 2019 great bottle of wine. But what's interesting about the 2019 Etienne, now you're looking at $300 for that, and the Scarecrow's like $500 now.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, even that Etienne, because I bought a bunch of those. That's that's what I was able to get in the beginning before I got my scarecrow allotment. I had, I want to say 9, 10, 11.
They were like a consolation prize.
No,
until
they
you
were
could
the
get
ones that
Scarecrow.
they were the ones I got first. You know, and then it's like, okay, you're, you know, maybe they had somebody drop out. Who knows how this,
Right.
how that, you know, how that works.
Are they producing more all of a sudden, or you know,
Right.
like you said,
And-
does somebody pull out of the membership? They can't afford it anymore. They don't. You know.
There you go. You know, you start looking at the price point. You know, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, even rich people
fair.
don't want to spend $500 for a bottle of wine. You know.
I quit drinking. You know, something like that.
Yeah.
Something, you know, people clean up their acts or something.
And it was a few spectators ago. They just got voted one of the top 10 vineyards in the world.
Which, yeah, that's got to be crazy. I mean, that's a lot of competition there.
Yeah, and we're talking, you know, France and, you know, other South America, Australia, you know, because there's good Chilean wine, you know, there's good Argentine wine, there's great wines.
Spanish
from
wine's
Australia.
pretty.
Spanish wine,
wine's
yep.
pretty popular, right?
Yeah, I mean, Spanish wines, they're old growth Tempranillos, and I like Piorats.
What's
from Spain.
Is that a grape? Is that
It's a region.
Okay.
And it's a slaty terroir. You know, a lot of slate in the ground over there.
Okay.
You know, a lot of as they say, a lot of dark, a lot of fall colors.
Okay.
You know, not spring flowers. A lot, you know,
And that influences the grape growth.
Yeah.
Like the way
Yeah.
the color, the deepness of the.
Yeah. The terroir makes
okay.
a big difference. Like, it was like when we had the O'Shaughnessy Mount Veeder. That's a very terroir-driven wine. We had the 2010 O'Shaughnessy Mount Veeder at Crafted, and that's a wine my wife does not like because it's too earthy for her. She doesn't. She goes, you know, I don't. To me, she's like, it tastes like dirt. I'm like, it doesn't taste like dirt.
Yeah, that's a flavor profile I've developed and enjoyed over the years, and I think that's, you know, to do with bourbon, spirits, and beer and stuff. Is I tend to like that flavor, even in my food. You know, I do. I don't mind that earthy flavor. I don't think you've brought me a wine that I've been like, meh. Everything has been kind of all right. Well, I'm never gonna get this again, so better just enjoy it.
Yeah, I did that with you know, Rod's like, I'd like to drink. So one day Rod was working and I brought a Cade, Howe Mountain. Howe Mountain's another great appellation in Napa. A lot of really good wine comes off of Howe Mountain, Dunn Howe Mountain Cab, Cade Howe Mountain Cabs. And I happened to have a Howe Mountain Reserve. I think it was like a 2013. So it would have been close to 10 years old.
Yeah.
Because Rod's probably been gone from Crafted in 2 years maybe now.
Yeah, I got to be close. Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense. He took over Wind Up Wednesdays for me. See?
Yeah. Yes, he did.
I love that guy. Him and Ryan are going to be on the show here eventually.
Nice.
They just gotta schedule it with them. You know, these two are wild cards. You never know how to get them together.
Oh, exactly.
So
exactly. And hey, Ryan's going to have to drive because it's a long pedal for Rod.
That's a long pedal for Rod. So how about like, you know, as you further your way down, you know, you started out laying tracks for the you know,
I worked in the
I always
track
want to call it
department.
the railroad. It's so
for the
generic.
railroad.
I mean, you worked for a specific railroad company for a number
Baltimore,
of years.
Ohio, Chicago Terminal.
Did it change over the years, or was it like naming wise and all that? Or
You know, yeah, it's still always the Baltimore and Ohio Chicago Terminal, but back then it was part of what was called the Chessie system. So that was the B&O and the B&O CT, the Chesapeake in Ohio, and the Western Maryland, which was interesting because when I lived in Western Maryland, the Western Maryland was right there.
Oh, no shit.
The B&O was on one side of the Potomac River, going through the Gap, where Lover's Leap was. And so you had the railroad, the river, US 40, the National Highway, and then the Western Maryland Railroad on the other side.
So when you know, obviously you start laying tracks at a young age, you know, whatever that's probably it is what it sounds like, right?
Oh,
You're
back
literally
then it
laying
was
tracks.
yes, and it was, you know, now it's all machine. No, me and 8 other guys got 2 of us got a set of rail tongs, and the 8 of us would lift up a 39-foot section of rail and drag it over and put it in.
And you're spiking it or
Yep,
however,
spiking it, and oh man, it was, we used to have spiking contests for beers.
Of course.
And
why wouldn't you?
It's funny. I when I walk in the morning, I run into a guy I used to work with, and I remember Angelo. He always called me Lambiojo. And, I never knew come on, Lambiojo, let's go. And I never knew what Lambiojo meant till somebody told me it was little woman. Because of my long hair.
Lambiojo. That's hilarious.
And, but, he was a good guy, and he liked me because I remember his foreman, Pasquale, told me, he goes, Jeff, Angelo doesn't share his food with just anybody. And his wife would, he would have one of those wide mouth thermoses, full of like beans and meat and sauce that he put in his taco shells.
No shit.
He'd make one Lambiojo.
That's hilarious. Here, woman, you have one.
Here, Lambiojo. And he taught me how to spike. So for a skinny little white kid, I'd go up against the guys I worked in Chicago Ridge.
Big
at that
boys.
time. I'd go up to the guys who came from the city, and some of the bigger Mexicans, some of the big black guys, and just whoop their ass, spike, and new ties, old ties, no,
and with your long hair,
yeah, with my long hair, and anybody could drive a spike in an old tie,
yeah,
you had to have
a little different when it was new,
new and hard, get it set and then go to town, so I did that.
So were you traveling a lot in those days, or was it just kind of like you were
just here in Chicago? Like I said, I worked out of Chicago Ridge, and we went from Blue Island to McCook on the McCook line. And that was what we took care of. Now, if it was something big, the guys from the city, from Roby Street, from Forest Park, from 48th Avenue, which was Cicero, 5th and Cicero was the yard up there, the 48th Avenue yard. And they'd come down and help us, especially if you're like changing out a switch where you're doing switch point, stock rail, frog, all of that.
I don't know what the hell you just said. Stock point, frog, something. It sounds like you were calling an NFL offense right there for a second. I need a stick point, frog, left, B for banana, spider.
It's just all pieces. A switch has got to have a switch point, and a stock rail to lay up against, and then it comes as it comes out this way. You got to, we used to bend them by hand.
How the hell do you do that?
There was
this
big
big, there was
this big
like
yellow
a conduit
thing.
bender type thing,
in a way, but it was this big yellow thing that the foreman would measure out where he wanted to bend. They'd set it on there, and then it was a hydraulic jack that went in there, and you got on there and you
just cranking.
You just cranked
crank,
and you bent the rail. And, that it acted like a fulcrum in a way, and then they would look at it and it's like, stop. And that was the perfect bend.
God
and
damn.
Then you'd get the switch point to lay up in there at the right spot. And so there was no gap in the switch, the switch point.
Precision. I mean, you need some level of precision there.
And we had this machine called the Speed Swing. Man, it was the coolest looking machine, and it could do a lot of work. You had what we called the pinchers, so they could pick rail up and frogs up, and because this stuff was heavy.
What's a frog?
A frog is where in the back of the switch, so the train can go straight, but when the switch is thrown and you're coming out of the turnout, you can also go over the frog.
Okay.
All
right.
So you can go and come out. It's almost like to explain it, like the entrance on the expressway, how that comes down on and comes out onto the expressway. The turnout does the same thing, but you have to have on the inside, you got the outside rail on the turnout, but on the inside, that's where the frog is. So you can either go straight or come onto the straight.
Yeah.
In a gradual turn.
No shit. See?
Yeah.
I'm learning now.
So, and we did, all of that by hand. All of that. I mean, and, I went, by the time I bid out of that job and got out of that department, I went from just being a skinny little long-haired white kid, to a guy who had muscles and could surprise
Kind of
people.
jacked, huh?
It wasn't like I was hugely jacked, but I could surprise people. I could really surprise my friends arm wrestling. And
damn, he's
stuff
stronger
like
than
that.
he looks.
Yeah, a lot stronger than I looked. Just because you were doing it every day.
Yeah.
It was every
Different
day.
kind of exercise there, huh?
Yes, different kind of exercise, and we raised a lot of track, and you did all that by hand tamping and swinging a pick and, line and bar nip and ties and,
Great core.
and all of that.
See, nowadays they just say you had a good core.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guy had a strong core.
And then I remember, I got bumped out of my job in Chicago Ridge. Living in Homewood, driving to Chicago Ridge wasn't a big deal.
What do you mean by bumped out?
Somebody with more seniority pushed me out of the job.
Fucker. Oh, how dare you, Jeff? Answer. I don't give a shit.
I didn't even realize.
Check who it is. Let's see who it is. We're here. I'm here for it, buddy.
Might be.
What if it's a hilarious phone call you got
I'll
to
call
take?
him back. No, son-in-law. Today's his
Okay.
birthday.
Yeah. He's calling you on his birthday? You're supposed to call him.
I did, and left him a message.
Oh, so now he's trying to give you
Yeah.
a call back. You know what? My dad's birthday today.
Oh, cool.
Yep,
Well,
yep.
tell him happy birthday.
Pops' birthday today. I had to call him. I texted him this morning, but he's a man of few words. Text is good for him. He likes to text. We'll take him out to dinner or something this weekend.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I got bumped out, and I ended up at 48th Avenue Yard, 5th and Cicero.
Okay.
That's a long drive from
A
Homewood.
little bit different. Yeah.
Oh, Cicero back in the 70s was wide open. It was wild. It was still mafia.
What do you mean
town.
by that? Okay, yeah.
It was mafia town. It was hookers on the corners.
They were doing it. They were doing it out there in Cicero.
And what was interesting was on one side of the track, on 5th Avenue in Cicero, on the north side of the tracks, that's where all the black hookers hung out. And I remember because I was on when I went down to 5th and Cicero, I worked track patrol. So which was you walked a lot of track looking for defects and fixing things. Okay, you looked for broken bolts and broken rails and bad
So it
ties.
was almost like segregated hookers.
Yeah, you went down to Roosevelt Road. It was all the white girls.
That's wild.
You went to the other side of the tracks, 5th, and I just remember, hey white boy, hey white boy. As I'm walking down the track, they're all yelling at me. Hey, you cute white boy.
They like your hair? Everybody liked your hair?
Yeah, because it hung out underneath my hard hat. Oh God.
So what time are you out there working that they're seeing you? What time are they out? They're
daytime.
They're out daytime.
Daytime.
It's a hustle all day.
It's a hustle all day. It's
Different times.
Yes.
Different times.
Yes. And there used to be
Nowadays, I hear that the hookers are just like wearing pajama pants at the gas stations now. That's we've got a lot of cops in the family, and they're like, oh no, this is how they do it. Like this is what if you're looking for prostitutes at the Speedway, it's the girl in the pajama pants looking like she just woke up.
No, these girls were done up.
Right, like what a classic thought of a hooker, a street lady,
and a total different than a Cal City hooker. Cal City
hookers.
hookers.
See, I don't know nothing about a Cal City hooker.
Cal City hookers, man, they were real.
Tell me
up.
about Cal City hookers.
Cal City, because again, I worked.
How do you know?
Stilettos, fishnets.
Oh, okay, so the Cal City was
like
next
a classic.
level. Like you see in the movies.
Yes, a classic
like
movie.
See in the movies.
Hooker, jewelry. The girls down there working at 5th and Cicero. It was just tight and short.
Okay. A little scary.
And there'd be like 5, 6, 7 of them.
Just all working.
Just all working. And
just hope you never meet the pimp.
I do remember one time. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna bring a couple joints down for these city hookers.
Well, look at how nice you are. That's pretty nice.
I came down when they were yelling at me, hey, white boy. I said, girls, I got something for you. What? And I handed them, two what we would consider normal joints. City joints were like New York pin joints.
Okay.
Okay. And they were like,
this is a fat joint.
You don't want no blowjob for this? I'm like, no, just enjoy. So they all skedaddled down 5th Avenue around the corner, and
light her up.
And track patrol was always on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So maybe I gave it to him on a Friday. So, maybe I didn't see him till Wednesday, and they were like, white boy, that was some fine ass shit.
Was it, I thought I had a question and I lost it. Did they leave him alone? Like, did the police leave him alone? Like, did they seem like they get harassed at that time?
I never saw them
bothered, basically.
Not really. You might see the squad coming underneath because the tracks went over top of Cicero. If the squad was coming up underneath,
or would they
they'd run. They couldn't scatter far. They'd just run down Fifth Avenue and go around the corner. And
bringing them that fire shit. Yeah, Jeff was bringing them that fire shit. Had him on another planet.
Oh, it was just and it was just funny. And I was down there for like a month, and I was just like, I can't keep driving down here. So I bid a carpenter's job in Bar Yard, which was Riverdale, which was much closer to Homewood.
So I know everything's so like specialized now, and you got to have a certain this and that to do this and that. Like at the time, was your skill set fit to be do the carpenter thing?
Oh, hell
it
no.
Wasn't.
I was no more a carpenter than I am today.
Okay.
But I could do that work. We did have some skilled carpenters, but we fixed windows and doors, and I could grunt for guys. I could carry stuff. I could, operate a saw. These guys would teach me, but I only did that for about a month. And I remember.
And that was just to get out of making that drive and,
yes.
and going through that whole thing.
I figured I had to get out of there, and so I could do the carpenter's job. Okay, was I a specialized carpenter? No, but could I do the work with the guys? Some of the guys who were there, yes.
I can hang.
Well,
yeah, and yeah, like you said, you can kind of gopher.
What was funny was the carpenter foreman. He was the old crane operator. He didn't know anything about carpentry either.
No shit. That's hilarious.
Yeah. But we had some good carpenters in that gang. So he was just the foreman. He basically drove the truck and made sure we got to where we were supposed to do and did the work.
Okay.
And I remember he had his own office. He was in the office with the painters. We had painters. And I remember he came into the shop, and he's like, I don't know what you did, kid, but the office called, and they want you in the office. And I'm like,
oh, shit.
Okay. And I'm thinking, I can't think of anything I did.
Oh, well, that's good.
And
that's good
he's
confidence
like,
there.
Yeah. And he's like,
keep talking. I'm going to go grab a glass for that stout.
And he's like, it was nice knowing you. Nice knowing you, kid. So I go down to the office, and I go to one of the clerks. I said, somebody's looking for me, and they're like, yeah, Jeff, and they holler out, guy's name was Dan Brescia. He was the division engineer, so he was like over all the maintenance guys. Okay, and he's like, come here, follow me, and I go upstairs and I meet the signal supervisor and the assistant supervisor. And they're like, he's like, here he is. And I'm like, I don't know these guys from Adam. And they're like, would you be, interested in being a signalman's assistant? And I'm like, okay,
How the hell would they even know to ask you? Like, what? I
don't know.
Did they get here? Oh, Jeff does good work, or this kid's, and
I know what had happened, why they needed a signalman's assistant, because the assistant in the gang had gone over to the communications.
Okay.
So he went into the communications department. And back then, communications wasn't like, what you think now communications, radio. This was, line wire.
Right.
They talked, to each other like, you never saw, you knew
switchboard.
You knew the operator was you were at 75th Street, and the next tower was at 49th Street, and you could talk to each other on the block line. You had these little boxes, and you flip up. It's like, hey, Joe. Yeah, Jeff. I said, 15's just hit the bell. It's headed your way. 15 was the number of a train.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. because you might have a Pensy lined up, because you had, these
The hell did you just say? A what'sy?
a Pensy.
Pepsi?
Pensy.
What's a Pensy? Tell me what
Pennsylvania Railroad.
okay.
We crossed with the Pennsylvania Railroad at 49th Street.
Okay. There we go.
And at 75th Street, we crossed with the Belt and the Wabash.
Okay.
All right. So these were interlockers. And down in Blue Island was the Grand Trunk. So these guys could all talk to each other on the block line. Well, that's what communications did. They repaired that kind of stuff. And they took care of the block lines. And then you had the dispatcher wire where you would, that was a different, like, you're handling the buttons with the cameras and stuff like that. The same thing. The dispatcher, he might go, he might tone you up, and you had a little tone, and you'd answer 75th, 49th, trunk, whatever, and the dispatcher would tell you who's coming.
Oh, damn.
And so that was, God, I can.
So this is the maintenance gang.
These are maintenance.
These guys are like, hey, you want to be a...
Yeah. So the signalman. So the signalman
shop was in. I'm gonna pop this stout.
Sure, was in Blue Island, and they needed an assistant. And I remember, they're like, well, would you be interested in a job? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I don't know anything about it. And they're like, well, we explained a little bit about it. I'm like, okay, I can do that, And I said, is it okay if I go home? This was on a Friday afternoon. And I said, is it okay if I go in and go home and talk it over with my dad? Well, these guys knew my dad. And they're like, sure. And I did. And I went home and I told them.
I got a question. What made you want to ask your dad? Like what?
Just because I didn't.
You're what, early 20s at this point, mid 20s?
Oh, no, I was 18.
This is young.
I take that back. Let me think. I had turned 19. So this was
okay.
I was
but
18.
Just after you're laying rail
and
all of that. Okay. So
you're
kind of progressing almost through
right.
what most people would think of as the corporate ladder. You're the tradesman, tradesman ladder.
It turned out to be a more skilled position.
So why talk to your dad? Like
I didn't know
you're very young, obviously. At this point,
I was
it's like who's
I was 19 then because I had just turned 19. This was January of '75.
So you and your dad had a really good relationship then.
Yeah.
I mean, they were.
And I just said, what do you? He goes, well, the signal department's a good department. That would be, that would be a good job. And I already knew that I'd take a 50-cent an hour cut in pay. So I would, I would go from $5.50 an hour to $5 as an assistant. But as a signalman, you went from $5 to $6.45.
So you had a.
So there was something to look forward to.
Right. You had a very, long play there.
Right. But you would, just like anything, it was kind of like an apprenticeship. You would serve your time before you would become a signalman.
Yeah, that's good beer. Sorry.
Oh no, that is a good can of beer.
Anyway, so you put your time in as an assistant.
Yeah. So I came back the next morning. Came back Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I was there at starting time, and I'm like, went back up to see them, and I'm like, and they're like, "Do you have good news for us?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I'll come up. I'll take the job." And they were like, "Welcome aboard." It's like, okay, we gotta get a hold of Dick. He was the foreman. Get him to come over and pick you up. I said, okay, I need to go up to the carpenter shop and get the stuff out of my locker. And they're like, yeah, no problem. Take your time. Go get your stuff and come back here to the office. So I remember going up to the shop, and the foreman's like, you're late. You ain't working for me. I said, I'm not working for you anymore.
Sure ain't.
I got my stuff, threw it in the back of my Mustang, and back to and
I sure ain't working for you.
Sure ain't working for you anymore. So and then and that was it. From January of 1975 to January of 2016, I was in the signal department.
Holy shit! Yeah, that's a time frame there, huh?
So yeah.
I'm sure there was some steps along the way, huh?
Yeah,
there was some things that happened.
Because I was an assistant and worked in the gang, and learned the ropes. Didn't and then unfortunately, so we had the signal department had shops at two locations, Vermont and Wyerton Road in Blue Island. Okay, and then 79th and Western in the city. And that was called Forest Hill. That was where the trailer yard was. That's where the trailer trains came in from the East Coast, from Baltimore, from Philadelphia and Baltimore.
Okay.
Okay. And, the trailer trains were nothing like, the trailer trains you see now. I mean, they're so, so many trains are, we call them van trains. You've probably seen them at crossings, the double stacks, of containers and stuff like that. And but there were two that went to Forest Hill, Philly and Baltimore, and they came in on different days, So,
who's a sweet boy?
So I almost a year to the day, I was an assistant. And the reason I became a signalman within a year was a guy who worked up at Forest Hill was killed in a car accident.
Oh, like on his personal time, not like
driving home from work. Driving home from work.
I thought you were going to say something like a train accident.
No,
Jesus,
no. But driving home from work, and it's like, wow. I'm like, I didn't really want to go, but the guys are like, yeah, you got to go. I said, I'm just a kid. I'm thinking this is really kind of gruesome in a way. You know what I mean? I'm going to fill a dead guy's job.
That's fucked up.
It is.
And that's an age too where it'd be interesting to process it. You haven't really gone through a whole lot.
And I mean, what's interesting is as an 18-year-old kid working with, I'm working with guys who are in their 60s, who are my grandfather's age.
Yeah.
And it was, but everybody, I remember it's like, Mister, he's like, I'm not fucking Mister, I'm Fred, it's like, you work with me. You're not my kid's friend, and I'm like,
excuse me, Mister.
But it's just different. You go, a lot of people don't necessarily go to work, and ride in a truck with guys who are twice their age.
Three times their age.
Right, three times their age. They, I remember, everybody I worked with in Blue Island was twice my age. Those guys were all in their 40s.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah.
And oh my God, I remember riding in the back of that truck with Mel smoking Chesterfield straights.
Chesterfields. Oh, wow.
No,
that's a pull
I
right
take
there.
that back. Mel smoked Pall Mall straights.
Pall Malls.
Butch smoked Chesterfield straights. And I'm sitting in the middle of these two guys turning green.
Just ripping one after another. They probably didn't even roll the window down.
No.
That was probably the time where they don't roll
Not
the window
in the winter
down.
time. It was like, Dick, who didn't, Mike smoked Winston's. Dick didn't smoke, but he had a window. He rolled his window down. He was the foreman. And it was just like, oh my God. And I remember saying, what's wrong with you? I'm like, they're fucking killing me with the cigarette smoke, man.
You smoke more cigarettes than
hang
you.
on till I breathe in some fresh air, And
you never smoked, huh? You never picked it up? Not really.
No, not really.
Yeah.
It's like you're a kid and you get a pack of cigarettes and you smoke it with your friends.
Yeah, sure.
No.
Yeah.
But think about it. Nobody smokes straights anymore.
No, my God. My the kid across the street who I grew up with, my best friend for years and years and years, the Panzics, his dad smoked Camel Unfiltereds all the way until he passed, and we used to steal those things at 8th grade, 10th grade, terrible.
Right, and you were green after you smoked
Unbelievable. I mean, I remember in college we went out and bought Lucky Strikes because we were all watching Band of Brothers, and we were like, we gotta get some Lucky Strikes, and this is the worst idea we've ever had.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes, and I can remember both Butch and Mel wearing work shirts with button pockets, a pack of cigarettes in each
My
pocket.
father still doesn't wear shirts that don't have chest pockets in them because he smokes, and he gotta have the chest pocket.
And these guys came to work with 2 packs of cigarettes for the day.
Yeah, that's just to get them through the day.
Yeah.
They'd be broke as shit right now.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, you get a carton for a couple bucks. Now,
I remember my foreman Joe. He's like, when they get to $1 pack, I'm going to quit. $1 a pack. Now you go to places, and some places are $10 a pack.
You get blowjob for $1 a pack. That's.
Oh God.
Yep. Now it's so crazy. Everything's crazy now, though. So it's like it doesn't even make any point to say anything about anything because it's all unbelievable now. How much everything costs, how much different everything is.
And one of the things that I can always remember is people that that I knew that smoked. They'd be like, because when I was going down, see my folks, see my mom, they're like, Jeff, how much is a carton of cigarettes at, in South Carolina? I'm like, I'll let you know. I come back, it's $17.40. They're like, what? Because here it was like 35.
Oh yeah.
So they'd be like, can you get me a couple of cartons of cigarettes?
It wasn't even that long ago like that. It was like that in like we take a trip to wherever like my dad would stop in Kentucky and get and it was about what you're talking about. It was like $35 compared to $50 a carton or something, and that wasn't that long ago. That was like Shannon and I were married at the time. Like we've been married for 15 years. So
our neighbor, God rest her soul, Miss Dottie, she smoked, and Misty Menthol 100s.
Holy shit! Hell yeah! My grandma always smoked Eves. She had Eve nightgowns, Eve slippers, Eve. Like it's so funny because like you think of if you ever made that connection to cigarettes and like the points. Remember they used to do the point. You see all the men with the Marlboro jackets.
I
and the
still have Marlboro stuff in Myrtle Beach. I got my Marlboro sweatshirt.
You got Marlboro
beach
stuff.
towels.
So, like grandma had these like really like feminine all these Eve brand cigarettes. They were long. We had a friend whose mom smoked Capris. They were like, I mean, they were so thin, like, and they had like a hard filter almost. Like,
they were
so interesting.
They were like the ink cartridge in a Bic pen.
It was just bizarre.
And and I would get cigarettes for Miss Dottie because she would go over to, and I know you know where this is. I think it's the Speedway on 183rd in Harlem. Because that's Will County, and it was it'd be cheaper.
Oh yeah, taxes would be cheaper
than Cook County, but I could get
like
her,
right by the open bottle kind of.
Across Harlem Avenue from the open bottle, and I could buy Miss Dottie a carton of cigarettes in Myrtle Beach for $55.
To steal.
Yeah. So, when I
so the ATF comes after you.
Well, but I don't know, because I'm thinking I'm throwing it in the car and driving them home. How many cigarettes are you allowed to take across state lines?
I'm sure there's some law or ordinance we don't know about.
And it's just like, because it's like, I can't sell those here. They got a South Carolina tax stamp,
And getting back to the world of the railroad, I mean, one of my favorite stories you've ever told me was your younger days on the tracks. I don't know what this is when you're on the signal team. I imagine I
was a signal maintainer, and this really wasn't that long ago. And I know where you're going because we've talked about this before. So let's see. The grandkids the boys are 20. So I'm going to say this would have been, I'll put it this way. It wasn't 15 years ago. Next month I'll be retired 9 years. Okay. So.
Wild. 9 years. Okay.
Let's, maybe the boys were 5. Maybe they were, no. This would have been 2009. Okay. This would have been 2009. And it was the Monday after the week of 4th of July, because we would always go up to our place in northern Wisconsin with the whole family, for 4th of July. And I was, like I said, I was still working.
That's the Hazelhurst spot.
Yes,
at the no longer have anymore,
right? That Sue sold to her brother. Yeah, because when we met,
me and you got to hang out a little bit in Wisconsin, which was awesome, by the way.
With Brando,
and Brando was there, and Brando from Workforce was
with
there
the new babies.
The families. Yep. Yeah, those kids are like upwardly mobile nowadays.
Oh, I can imagine.
Crazy.
And so it's 6:00 in the evening. It's a beautiful summer night, and I was in Blue Island, so south of the canal. So people who know Blue Island, so south of the canal, right off of Western Avenue. Yeah, right next to, across the street from the old Libby's building. And Federal Sign and Signal was there. Okay, before they moved out to, I think they're out in Monee now, because you can see them off I-57. Big new, big building. Anyway, I was working on a switch failure there, and I'm, switches, the switch machines are down on the ground, so I'm down on my knees, working on this, and I hear a rock get kicked down the track, and come on, rocks just don't roll down the tracks on their own, Wait
a minute.
Yeah, and
it's quiet out here.
Yeah, exactly. And it was an area where I would never think this would happen, and I turn around, and this is how I described him to the police, a well-dressed black young man, because he had on a nice black pearl button shirt and nice shorts and a black revolver stuck in my face when I turned around.
Just to add to the outfit.
Just to add to the outfit.
Give a little pop to it.
You know,
That's fashion.
Yeah, it's fashion. You know, and close enough to my face that I could see the bullet heads in the chamber. You know, in the cylinder, rather. Take that back.
That's got to be an odd feeling.
And
yeah.
it was like,
be able to see the bullet heads of the revolver.
He's yelling at me, get on the ground, get on the ground. And I'm like, I just looked, I'm like, dude, I'm already on the ground. You know, I'm on my knees, you know. And he's like, give it up, give it up. And I'm like, give up what? He goes, the wallet. I'm like, I don't have a wallet, you know. I did. It was in my lunchbox.
Right.
I just never put stuff in my pockets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I never carried my wallet in my pocket.
If you want.
Yeah, you know, because
I'd rather not eat a bullet right now.
Right, because I put tools in my pockets. So wallets in the lunchbox. Lunchbox is in the truck. Didn't volunteer that information.
Right.
Then he's like, give me the cash. Give me the cash. And I pull out my pockets and there's no cash in there. I said,
homeless Jeff.
I'm like,
you're like the Monopoly guy with the pockets out.
I'm like, dude, I just came back from vacation with the grandkids. I don't have any money. And he was like, oh man, you know,
I fucked up.
Yeah, you robbed the wrong guy. You're trying to rob
I know
a guy.
some hookers down in Calumet.
In Fifth and Cicero, you know. Yeah. So I looked at him and I said, listen, man. I said, you know, I don't have any cash, okay? And I said, you know, you might want to get out of here because they send people out here to check on us when we're working like this on overtime to make sure we're not goofing off and stuff, you know? So I just turned back around and went back working on my switch, you know?
Maybe he stays, maybe he doesn't.
You know, so I didn't, I never heard him leave, but I let some time go by.
Before you checked?
Before I checked around, and he was gone. You know,
like what was your first thought when you turned around and you're like, he was gone?
It was like, okay, he's gone. You know, and I looked around, he wasn't over by the truck. You know, and I don't know where. Truthfully, he didn't walk back down the tracks. I think he went around me and went down Chatham Avenue, because Chatham runs parallel to Western, and then there's nothing, going east from there, just tracks and woods. And some apartments, to the north of the tracks. So, and I know you remember this was the back in the day of the Nextels.
Oh yeah,
the quick, the
chirp,
beep, beep, chirp.
Yep, you got to chirp them.
Yeah, those were awesome.
That was my college days.
Those were awesome because you could talk to your friends.
You're talking like this has got to be like between like 04 and 06 probably.
Okay,
I would think 02 and 06 maybe. That's probably the time frame you're talking about. Yeah, I remember using those all the time.
Because I now remember, going to the truck and getting my phone and chirping up Yolanda. Now she was the girl who worked the desk who called us out for overtime. And she had little screens like you got your screen up here and up there that you're doing. She could see like the interlocker I was working in and that I was still working there because there would be it would be blue, and that was called blue flag protection. Okay. So the dispatcher would block that out so he wouldn't run you over.
Right.
Which is always a good thing.
Yeah. No, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's worse than a revolver in your face.
So, I call her up and, she doesn't answer. And I'm like, hey, Yolanda. She doesn't answer. And I'm like, hey, Yolanda. And she doesn't answer. Well, unbeknownst to me, she's on a conference call with Jacksonville, And then I'm like, Yolanda, emergency. And then the guys they're hearing this, through the speakerphone. They're like, Yolanda, you need to talk to Jeffrey.
You might want to.
And so she's like, yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey. And I told her I said, Yolanda, I've just been robbed. What? I said,
well, guy
stuck a gun in my face. I said, you might, could you, maybe send the gumshoe, that's what we call the railroad cops, the gumshoes. And she's like, yeah, Jeffrey, well, unbeknownst to me, the guys in Jacksonville were already dialing up the Blue Island police.
Oh, shit.
So they showed up first, and Sergeant showed up, and he came in and he talked to me, and I gave him the description and stuff like that. Then, another officer pulls up and he goes, okay, I'm going to go out and see if I can. This is what he says. He goes, I'm going to go out and see if I can find this well-dressed dirtbag, and he'll take your statement. So, talk to him and get everything done. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm cool." He goes, "You're sure you're okay? I'm going to take this. Is it okay if I go, leave you out here and go back on patrol?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be fine." He's like, "All right,
I got to finish this shit up."
Right, I got to finish this shit up, and so I'm out there. We get when the dispatcher gives you time, he's like, "How much time do you want?" I'm like, "Can I get a half hour?" Always ask for a little more than you need, because if you go over, they're not real, they'd rather, it's like, I'll ask for a half hour, and if I'm done in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, then they're happy.
Okay, that's good. We're done.
And
we'll pay you for 30.
Yeah. And so I remember, being over on my time. So now it has gotten around the dispatcher's office what has happened. Okay. So now, like, Yolanda's like in a little square room like this, and now she's got 9 people all like standing over here,
The fuck happened out there?
Right. What the hell Jeffrey doing? She's like, "He's fine." She's like, "Have you talked to him?" "No, but I know he's fine," and she goes, "Well, you need to call him, because, if he left and didn't give the track back, we're in trouble." And she's like, "He didn't leave," so I had the phone in my pocket then. So it chirps up, and it's, I hear Yolanda. She's like, "Jeffrey, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, Yolanda." I said, "I'm checking the other end of the crossover before I give it back," and she goes, because we talked about this a couple days later, and she goes, she put the phone on the desk, and she just looked at everybody and said, "See, I told you," so
Jeffrey's doing just fine.
When I was all finished and had, done my test and checked and everything, make sure it worked, called the dispatcher, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm sorry, dispatcher. I'm on the, getting back to you so late. I had that, I had a little bit of a situation out here." And he's coming over the radio. "Just a little bit of a situation, Mr. Beal?"
Yeah.
So,
Mr.
and
Beal.
it was surreal, I mean, hey, he didn't shoot me because I didn't have any money. Thank God.
You didn't panic, it doesn't seem like.
No, it just...
Unless you're telling this story really cool. And
no, I mean, it's just how it happened, except, the one thing I did leave out is I thought, and I didn't say this to him, like when I turned my pockets inside out, and they're, flopping in the breeze, I thought, "Kiss the bunny's nose." It's probably a good thing I didn't say that,
My ears out. If I got my ears out, that would be more for the ones in Cicero.
For the Cicero,
yeah,
right?
That would have been more of a Cicero ending, right there.
So, and then I remember, everything was fine. I gave the track back, talked to the dispatcher, blah blah blah, and then prior to that, while I was talking to the officer, I called Yolanda. I'm like, "Yolanda, you need to call Sean, our Sean Ball."
Oh, Sean Ball.
He was my boss.
Oh, that's funny, yeah, because this is pretty more recent. I ran into him the other day.
Did you?
I was riding my bike through the bike trail, and I saw him walking the dog. I'm like, "Hey!" I'm like flying by him as he's getting a shit bag out. One of the little things. He's a great guy.
He is. Dude. And he was my boss at the time. So it's funny you say he's getting the shit bag. When they called him to let him know he and his wife were walking the dog.
Yeah.
And he happened to call me back right when I was still talking with the officer. And I said, "Sean, let me finish this up and let me finish up here, and I'll give you a call." And so, we talked about, and he was just like, I said, "So what did you think when you got that call?" He's like, "I didn't know what to think,
Well, yeah. Whoa, what would you think?
So then I'm driving home and I'm thinking, "Oh shit, I need to call my wife." Because what happens
She hasn't even known yet.
No, she doesn't know him. And then what happens if somebody calls the house?
"Hey, is your husband okay?"
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why he wouldn't be.
So I said, "Okay."
This has already reminded me of another great Jeff Beal story. Keep going. Keep going.
So I call her and just, let her know. I'm like, "Honey, I'm okay." And she's like, because, you go out on the railroad, people have gone out and not come back.
Right.
People have gone to work and not come back. And you hate to think that. And I told her, and it was one of the few times that she was standing outside the door when I backed the truck in the driveway, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm everything, everything's cool. Don't worry, everything, and it would just, I don't think they ever found the guy because they, the detectives called a couple times just
Didn't
to
even
let
sound
me
like
know.
you were worried about them finding him.
Yeah,
I'm glad he's gone.
Yeah. It was just, and again, it was weird.
Weird.
It was weird. So, but I will tell you this: I was packing for about 3 or 4 weeks after that.
Oh, yeah?
Every overtime call I went on, just in case.
Well, Daddy will keep a little something on him.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you a couple of shots at what story do you think I'm thinking about now? You brought your wife up and calling her. Do you remember that? Remember that day you were hanging out with us at Crafted, and what happened? Something broke, like a glass broke, and you had like the alarms that go off?
Oh yes, right.
Wasn't it like alarms that go off audio, like
the glass break?
Yes.
She
we were all hanging out having a fun time,
and I get
sharing some beers,
and I get the phone call from ADT.
Yes, that's what it was. It was ADT.
ADT calls. It's like, what the hell? Why is ADT calling me? Like, because I knew Sue was home.
Funny.
Yeah, I forgot about that, and she dropped the glass, and we have a tile kitchen floor. Well, come on, tile's unforgiving when you drop something glass, and because of and just like you with the dog, you can't have motion.
Yeah. We were so confused. All of it. We were just like, wait, what happened? Like, because I don't think we knew until after. Like, you had to check on it. Like, she didn't know why, right? Like, she didn't understand why they came at first, right? Or you didn't understand because they were calling you.
Yeah. I why didn't they call the house? And they called me, and she was home.
But was it it was your home? Like, it was your normal home?
It was
right?
Oak Forest.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, because Myrtle Beach has motion.
Right.
Because nobody's there. And then, you can turn, like if I'm there and I want to turn the alarm on and Jake's there, I just turn motion off.
Right. Oh, my God, that was so funny. We were all so confused. Like, what the hell's happening right now?
I was confused.
Oh, we know what happened. Now. Okay. Well, you're thinking like a window was broken or like,
Right.
Tried to break in.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of the Myrtle Beach house, I mean that we haven't even gotten to Perrone's, and we brought it up a couple times. So give me because I don't even think I really know the origin story of your relationship with
Steve.
With Steve, yeah. I just know all the cool things that you guys do
through Chuck from the wine shop.
Okay, so Chuck is if you want to rewind back 2 hours, you can hear about Chuck who got you turned into the wine psychopath that you are now.
Right. Chuck was friends with Steve before I met Chuck. Okay.
How is Chuck and him connected if he's running something here in Chicago?
No, Chuck was the wine shop in North Myrtle Beach.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. You did mention that. So good. Yeah. All of our bases are covered. I just need to listen better.
Where was Steve was working as a waiter at one of the steakhouses
in Myrtle Beach.
Beach. I just can't think of which one it was, and Chuck knew him through there.
I never thought about this until recently, but almost till right now. But like, we probably spent a lot of the same time in Myrtle Beach. We didn't go there a ton, but we went there more than most would.
Okay,
because my mom's sister moved there when I was young. Like when I was like 10, 11, 12. They were like, we're golfers. We're going to move out to Myrtle Beach. So we would go and visit in Garden City. They lived in
Garden City. That great area.
There's another city, right? It was like Clearwater and Garden City.
So you have Myrtle Beach, Surfside.
That's where they lived in Surfside first.
Garden City.
Maybe Garden City at some point.
Merle's Inlet.
Yeah. So we've recently have gone to Myrtle's Inlet.
And
Pauley's stayed Island. There and like on the ocean,
as
a family. But my aunt and uncle lived there. They're back in Illinois now, but they lived there for a number of years. They were big golfers.
Okay,
golf
capital of the world.
Uncle Paul was out there delivering Krispy Kremes in a truck.
Oh, he was Krispy Kremes.
Aunt Pam was out there golfing. She worked for like a printing company, and so we would go out there, for multiple times, and we would always drive too.
Okay.
We were in Garden City and stuff, and I just thought to myself, like, me and Jeff were probably in
yeah,
Myrtle Beach at the same time as I was like a kid, probably, and you were
86 is when we had that. When the house started being built.
Yeah, this would have been like late 90s, probably. I was there.
Oh, I was there. Yeah,
Yep.
I was there all the time, hanging out.
Yep.
Like you said, with my buddy Tim in the rock and roll room.
Yeah, hell yeah.
With 7,000 records and 4,000 CDs.
So cool.
And but no, so met Steve through Chuck, and then I remember Chuck called me and said, "Hey, we're going to do a beer share at Perone's. Come on down and be there at 1:00." And this was before I was bringing the beers.
Yeah.
Okay. Because now, and that's when I found out that Steve really likes non-ag. Well, you know that.
Just a
the
straight.
minutia.
Yeah.
That
was one of the funniest things, too.
Yeah.
Sean walked through the tap room that day. You were at Phase 3, and you were like, "Hey, Sean, like, let me ask you something."
Let me ask you
and
something.
he just looked at me and said, "Well, Joe, can we sell him one?" I was like, "Well, yeah, I guess we can."
Because it's always hard to get things for people who can get things for themselves.
Oh, right. But that's where
but
scarcity, rarity, and the supply and
like I
demand
said,
really
right.
can benefit a guy who doesn't.
And Steve liked the barrel-aged stouts non-adjunct. So he's had minutia numerous times. The all of the reserve bourbon counties.
Yeah.
The non-adjunct cuppas.
Good this year again. Good this year again.
Yeah.
Had it at Fobab. It was great.
And then, I'm like, well, is coffee and coconut okay? He's like, yeah, coffee and coconut's
Sure,
okay.
why not?
Benthicks, so.
Hey, not that you can see it on camera, but Jeff opened up a nice double barrel benthic for those of you who are in the beer know.
And
16.8.
I know.
Ooh.
I know.
Didn't even realize it.
Yeah, that's a dangerous beer.
Awesome beer.
Oh, yes. But
What year is that's 2022? Never mind, I can see it right on there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first year of the 12 oouncers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed when they went from 16
there.
to 20.
I think I
was
went
16
there that year to
12.
pick up. It was awesome. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
It's like, oh man, I'm paying the same, but I'm getting less beer.
Well, guys.
So,
anyways,
that's how I met Steve. So
one
day
Chuck introduced you to
Chuck
Steve.
introduced me to Steve. So we started doing the beer shares, and then
were you already eating at Perone's at the time, or you were
not in the kitchen or anything like that, but dinner, meeting Chuck and his wife Angie and Sue and I going to Perone's and eating dinners. And so in 2014, so same beer, but we both, I call it Rare 23 and you call it OG Rare.
Oh, wait, Rare 23?
Yeah.
Why do you call it 23?
Because it was stored in Pappy Van Winkle 23 bourbon barrels.
Yeah. Everybody calls it OG Rare, right?
OG Rare. So your
I'm
first,
thinking, where's the 23 come
your
from?
first, your first bourbon county that people chased, like all over the place for.
I had a guy send me one in the mail blindly, like not as a thank you.
Wow.
He's Kyle knows him. Sean, you probably know him too. Sean Blickham. He's real quiet dude, like, but very, very nice guy. Like Kyle knows him through the beer world, obviously, but I think I helped push him up on the list at Phase 3 to get a membership, or like his wife was in picking something up for him, and she was like joked about something about him wanting a membership or something, but obviously the waiting list was long or whatever.
Right.
And I knew him to be a very generous person through Kyle, through other people. And he's also a guy who drinks all of his beers. He doesn't resell them. So
yeah,
I found a way to get him up on the list. And kind of get him a membership. And like blind, no conversation. All of a sudden there was a box on my door, and I was like, I don't know what this is. And I opened it, and there was an OG Rare or a 23. And I was like, holy shit, this is great. Like what?
Yeah.
What a cool bottle. Anyways, that's all.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And I remember going to Main Street Liquors in I guess that would be McCook LaGrange countryside up in there, up on on LaGrange Road, 55th, something, in and around there. And I knew the guy from wine because I would go in there and look at wines, stop in there on my way home from work, go over there and see what he. And when that article came out in the paper, I took it with me. I said, I can't remember his name, whatever. I'm like, are you getting this beer? He's like, well, I get an awful lot of Bourbon County. I should be getting He started reading the article. He's like, damn right, I want to get this beer,
I better
get this beer. And I said, well, can you do a list for people? I said, he's like, yeah, Jeff. He goes, let me, he went there, but I'm number one. And at this time, I was getting it from my friend Ron. And you've heard me speak of Ron.
Yep.
You've seen the Rolls Royces, and and it's like, what do you buy for your friend who can buy anything he wants himself,
Yep.
And so I got on that list, and he called me and he's like, I got your beer, and at that time people were, the list price, let's just say the list price was, $24.99, and people were selling it for $34.99, because they knew they had something special. And I mean, he tacked on $5 and, hey, who cares?
Oh, shit. Darn.
Yeah.
I'd kill for that.
Well, then my wife's daughter works, at the time was working for ATI down in Bourbonnais.
Yep.
And they are right next to the liquor zone.
That sounds made up.
The liquor zone is what it is. The liquor zone. And that guy got a case of Rare.
Okay.
Of Rare 23.
Oh, that son of a bitch.
But he didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. And
Some people didn't know what they had.
Right.
Yeah.
And between my wife and Jason, who was just calling when we were
Jason.
And myself, we got
to have a little visual of it. Man,
there you go. Yep.
I'm actually drinking out of that glass right now.
All right.
Check that out. Okay.
We got 6 bottles out of that case.
That's wild.
And
and I don't think you're the only person to have that story, because there's people that have a suspicious amount of it still to this day that you're like, how do you still have that? Like,
yeah, and think about it. That was 2010.
Yep, 2010.
You know, so over 4.5 years, I drank my 4 bottles.
Yep.
At various times. The first bottle was opened at the Indy 500 the following spring.
That's cool.
So, and I don't know.
Did I drink one of those bottles with you?
I think I did bring one of those up
Unless
to craft.
Maybe it was the 2015 that you brought the one.
Yeah, I did. I had 2 2015, so I did bring a 2015 too to craft it.
I think that was the night we were that Ailman guys were there. That Nate guy.
Yes,
we had some good bourbon that night too. I don't remember what it was. I just remember him doing the old left nostril, right nostril sniff. I remember 2015 Rare being a part of that night.
And so I just remember, 6 months, later, Indy 500. Oh my God, the bourbon was just like, it was all bourbon. You definitely got stout, but I mean, you opened the bottle and it smelled like bourbon. Mm-hmm. And then in in the spring of 2014, we opened up the last one at Perrone's. Oh. Okay. So that's what started, I want to say, the beer shares with, being invited to the beer shares, because the beer shares used to just be Steve and Chuck. Okay. And then they included me.
Big swinger.
Okay. So, and what I'll always remember about that, we were in there having dinner and I brought that bottle, and what I'll always remember was the licorice, the licorice taste of that beer at that time, because it had so many, as you drank it throughout the years, just so many little nuances.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like one of the ideal bottles to have laid down too, because I mean, I've still seen people open it recently and been like, it's still fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because they even kind of, they kind of put it on stuff now, but 5 years. Like they kind of give you a limit, like that. Don't hold on to it longer than that. That beer and that year in particular, or like that time frame with those 22-ounce bombers. The backwood, our backyard rye, the VR, the vanilla. Like these beers held up. These beers held up.
Oh, very much. I mean, you think 2014, people still talk about the vanilla rye and the prop.
Yeah,
those will always probably be the
and
best
somehow
prop,
somehow they're holding up. Even recently, if you can get a bottle to open, I mean, it's kind of incredible.
Yeah,
what they did at that time. But anyways, what I'm asking, what I was really more interested in was the Steve relationship.
Yeah,
and how that kind of developed. So obviously that's kind of the start of it.
Right, that's the start of it. So then more beer shares. Then I started bringing the beer. So I started bringing, getting the IPAs, like bringing Phase 3 IPAs. Bringing some Hop Butcher IPAs. Steve's favorite beer
Were you driving it or were you sending it?
No,
ahead of
I did.
yourself?
I was, once I retired, I was driving and carrying it with me.
That's right.
Okay. Now, when I was flying, I'd send the wine ahead of me.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd pack up because I get wine sent to the house, beautiful shipping containers.
Right.
So I just repack them and I would UPS them to my neighbor
These
Joe.
fuckers are safe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd UPS them to my neighbor Joe, and she would hold on to them for me.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I do remember her one time telling the UPS guy, she goes, "Oh, Jeff's wine's here."
You're like, shut the fuck up! Don't tell anybody. Jeff's olive oil has arrived.
And she's like, "Yeah, my neighbor sends his wine down here before he flies down." And I'm thinking the UPS guy's probably just like, I'm probably not supposed to know this.
Yeah.
But this sweet,
the less I know.
But this sweet little gray-haired lady's telling me this,
Like this silly old young man, Jeff. He's sending his wine down.
So then it was one time I was there for beer share. And Steve was like, and it was funny because Sue was with me. And he's like, "Why don't you just stay, have dinner, come back and sit in the kitchen?" And I'm like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Fuck yeah, I own the place, I'm sure."
Well, it sounded like at the beginning of this story, you talked about Steve working in one of these steakhouses. So at some point in between then and there, he opens up a fucking restaurant.
Well, he opened up like a deli first.
Okay.
He opened up a deli where he made homemade salads and had sandwiches and sold wine and cooked things, and he was across the street from the restaurant. Okay. So this would have probably been, I'd have to ask him how long the restaurant's been open, but I know I've been going to the restaurant as long as I've been retired. Okay. So the restaurant's probably close to 10 years old. Okay. So he was across the street with the deli, and I remember him telling me, we were sitting in the deli, and he goes, I'm going to take that building and I'm going to turn it into a restaurant. And it took a while for all that to get done. And then Chuck's like, "So 2014, 2014, we're eating in the restaurant." So the restaurant's 10 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was probably, and we may have been there. No, that would have probably been the first time. Yeah. There you go. That is, that picture, that's the bar. There you go. That is the restaurant. And that would be Steve and Eileen.
It's kind of, it's a little blurry, unfortunately.
Yeah. But that wall that's the bar. And then you look at the food,
some dishes and whatnot.
Like, oh my God. Yeah. I pretty much,
there
him?
He
is. That's the man himself. And I have a picture. I'll have to show you. So we're sitting in the kitchen, and he's got a full complement of cooks on the line.
Okay.
So he's like, "All right, I'm going to sit and drink with you." So we're sitting there and we're drinking, and Jim, who's been with him for years, says, "You look like those old guys from the Muppets."
I can see that. I can see the two of you guys being the grumpy two in the balcony. Is that you guys?
Look at this. I posted that on the Perone's website.
Oh
on
yeah,
the Facebook page.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait. I gotta outthink myself here. So I'm gonna put the camera on you, and I'm gonna do. Yep, I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Since I can't pull it up on the computer, I'll do it this way. Yeah.
I will have
Hilarious.
to. I'll have to send you the picture.
Hilarious.
And I'm like, I pulled that up, and it's like, I mean, it's perfect. I've got the bald head and the mustache, like the one, and this is May 2nd. So that was this.
That was recent.
That was recent. It's not even May 2nd.
You guys are the fucking Muppets. That's great.
It's not even May 2nd of a different year. It's May 2nd of this year. So, but, and then, it's just, he invited me to come back in the kitchen. And so, I mean, I was gone from, I don't know, I left it, it's just a little under an hour ride from the house, but it's an easy drive. To
Perone's?
To Perone's.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't realize. I thought.
Yeah, because I'm in North Myrtle Beach.
And where's Perone's
He's
technically
in
located?
Pawleys Island, which is south of Garden City. Mm-hmm. Okay, but with the new highway with 31 and 707 now being 5 lanes, it's a piece of cake to drive down there. Yeah. And what's so interesting, if I leave at 10 o'clock or if I leave at 12 o'clock, there's no traffic at night. It's like the place rolls up. Now you get to North Myrtle Beach. That's not the case. Yeah, it's busy up there.
Going on, yeah.
But down there, it's like there's like no traffic. So
changing lives one dish at a time. I love that. That's his.
And, or Charleston Smarlston, eat here. There's and he's guinea pigged me on numerous dishes. He did something that is I've had some really good stuff, but one of the things that's and just recent was one of my favorites was he did a A5 grade Wagyu steak tartare.
Oh, it sounds terrible.
Topped with caviar.
Oh, it sounds even worse.
And a smoked quail egg.
Does he go that hard? Like, is that the normal menu there?
He does, and that's an $85 appetizer.
Yeah.
Okay, but
easily.
But people who know. And there's a couple that come in and eat quite a bit. Very lovely couple. Okay, and they actually, the day he guinea pigged me on that, Rachel, I call her the line boss. She works the other side of the kitchen. So like when orders are up and placed up on the shelf to go, she notifies the servers.
She's the coordinator of the whole thing.
And we call it Rachel's foof. So like the microgreens, the edible flowers, she does all the decorations that Steve grows all the stuff out in the back. Jesus. I remember one day he's like,
I think I got to get Steve on the podcast.
Yeah.
I got to get Steve on here.
He goes, let's, and he's a typical New Yorker, typical New Yorker. And he's like, come on, Jeff, let's bring our wine and stroll through the garden. We go out behind the restaurant where he's got everything growing.
Skills and stroll through the garden.
And, just all the herbs and the greens, and grows his own strawberries, and, and he sources a lot of stuff local. All his catch comes from one particular fisherman there in Merle's Inlet.
That's wild.
He
Steve's
does
the real deal.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He, I've met people who have gone. It's like, I'm not going back. It's too expensive. I'm like, yeah, but was the meal good? Oh, the meal was fucking awesome, but it's still too expensive.
Yeah.
So, it is expensive for some people. I get that.
Yeah.
but
not the people that are.
Not everybody serves
going to Myrtle Beach.
Right.
So,
and not everybody serves a 47-day dry aged ribeye.
You gotta know what you're getting into.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to go there understanding where you're going.
So that one night he's, I come back and I sit in the kitchen for the first time, and, and he's like, yeah, you better go pick a bottle of wine for Sue. She's probably going to be pissed at you because it's 9:30 now.
So what's Sue doing?
Oh, she was home.
She was home.
She was home. Take care of it.
Pick a bottle of wine.
I picked a nice bottle of wine for Sue. And he sent me home. But I called her. And she's like, yeah, it's okay. And then I get home and she yelled at me. Well, I didn't expect you to be this late.
Well, I didn't expect to be sitting in the kitchen drinking good stuff with the man.
So then then he's like, well, why don't you I said, okay, I'll bring the wine. And so, I always bring now when I'm down there, I have it's every Thursday, because I don't go in there. I'm only there one time during the summer. So like when I fly down for termite inspection, because I got to have yearly termite inspection to to protect a termite bond. Okay. And so that's my only time in the summer. But I just figured in the spring and the fall, Thursday's a good night because Fridays and Saturdays are your big nights.
Right. You don't want to keep them too distracted or
right. But in the springtime, sometimes Thursday night's just the same as a Friday.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually a modern thing now too, where it's like Thursdays are becoming more of a go out night for a lot of people.
I mean, there's been nights, like I said, the first thing I do is now I walk in and I look and see how many people are coming, what time all the people are coming.
I guess I'm on bread today.
Right. So I know how much bread to get bacon, and stuff like that. And, one Thursday night, it'll say 87, and they'll end up doing 104 because they have walk-ins.
Yep.
And then the next Thursday night, I look on there, and there's 137 already on the, 137 reservations, and they are slamming. And then Steve, and finally he's like, I'm done asking you what you want. You just tell people what you want. If I'm not going to give it to you, I'll tell you no. He's
like what? Like the wine or like
the food?
Just the food.
The food. So like.
So what do you do? Do you just wait till somebody throws something at you?
No.
Or do you say like, would you mind? Do you have to look at one of the
I will
line
ask
cooks?
for things. I'm like, Jim, can I have a crab cake? Yep. Or I'll get the mistakes. It's like,
oh yeah, hey, fuck something up.
Well, it's not that. It's like, oh, the guy didn't want the mussels. He wanted this. Jeff, you want to order mussels? Oh, the mussels are delicious.
Of course
sure,
I want
I'll have
the mussels.
And
we're right next to a goddamn ocean. Of course I want the mussels. Yeah.
And so, it's like, we made 2 mac and cheese. We only need 1. Jeff, you want a mac and cheese? I'm like, yeah, I want a mac and cheese.
Appetizer.
I mean, the bacon,
what's in that mac and cheese?
The mac and cheese. And then with the bacon bits, and then it's baked, in the broil over top. Yeah. But and then it's just like Steve's just like, you want a steak? It's like, no, I think I'll have the catch tonight.
Yeah, whatever.
I said, I'm bringing the scarecrow next week, so that's a steak night. He's like, oh yeah.
What's the Merle's Inlet? What did he catch today? I'll take some of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's usually it's a grouper, but I've had all kinds of different grouper.
Yeah,
I just remember Rob saying, this is the grouper you don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah. He goes, don't get that one. I'm like, okay. He says, when that one's on the menu, don't have that grouper.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. All right. But
Okay.
I've had the redback, I've had the gag, I've had, numerous different types of grouper. And he does the grouper with emperor rice and a preserved lemon sauce. He makes his own preserved lemons, which is interesting because I always ask him, what is in this sauce? How do you do that? And I learned because the preserved lemon sauce has all the lemon flavor without the lemon bitterness.
How the hell does that work?
You take
But
lemons,
it's not sweet. It's not like a sweet. It's not like he sugars it up or something.
No. So what he does is he'll buy lemons and he flours the lemon and then he packs with kosher salt.
Say, Jeff, you're not supposed to give these secrets away.
Yeah, most people won't do this. Then you then you fill the mason jar full of these lemons and with more kosher salt, and you just pack them in there and put the lid on it and stick it up on the shelf for, I forget for how long. And that salt takes away, it intensifies the lemon flavor and takes away the bitterness.
And then eventually, what, you're squeezing them, like you're juicing them, or
it turns into, for lack of a better thing, almost like a goo.
Okay, like a jelly of almost.
Yeah, but not that consistency. Just it's runny and and then with the emperor rice and the tomatoes and the microgreens and
some high end shit going on there.
Yeah,
the
and then he crab cakes. He jumbo lump North Carolina crab. North Carolina blue crab. Because you go down south and you get what they call a low country crab cake, and it's way more breading than it is, crab,
Okay.
and he sits that on butternut squash, and the butternut squash is wrapped in spinach,
Sure.
and that crab cake sits on top of that with the sauce, and
Just
like sometimes I'll have that as my dinner, or I'll like, Jim, would you make me an appetizer sized crab cake? Sure, Jeff. And then so Jim had lived in Chicago for a while, so I really got on Jim's good side when I bought him Vienna beef dogs and S. Rosen buns. I'm like, Jim, I got a present for you.
Rosens,
Yep. And because come on, you got to have the S. Rosen bun.
Yeah.
That's like getting back to the Philly cheesesteak. You have to have the Amorosa dough,
Gotta be
those rolls
specific.
from the South Philadelphia bakeries.
Very specific.
Yes. So, and like I said, Steve loves glazed orange milkshake.
Oh, does he really?
Yes, he does. So
As does so much of Chicago.
Yes.
If you remember that time frame of 2017 or 18ish until 22, whatever. Glazed orange milkshake is a
lined up and crafted.
Technically, it's a double IPA with lactose, and
it
orange
tastes like a dreamsicle
flavor. Yes,
it tastes like a dreamsicle.
It was a legit liquefied
dreamsicle
dreamsicle with alcohol in it.
Yeah,
it still had an IPA. It still reminded you that it was like a beer and an IPA. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But man, was it a decadent little thing, and it was impossible to get. You had to wait for it. You had to know somebody. You had to,
Come on, people knew it was coming to Crafted on that. He goes, what? Hot Butcher comes every Thursday?
Sniff it
or
out
every Wednesday.
Yeah, it was I think sometimes it varied, but usually I think it was Thursday morning.
Okay, you'd have 20 people lined up at Crafted. We just showed up to go to work.
Yep.
Glazed orange milkshake.
Oh, those were good times. Those were fun times.
Yeah, and I remember bringing him, and he just loved. And when I found out that was one of his favorite beers,
it was stupid. It was a crazy beer to
Yeah,
I'd love to have. I haven't had one in so long. I'd love to see what it tastes like now.
The last time I had one was with Steve in the spring.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Still good?
Yeah.
He was still happy?
All right, because I know I shipped him.
Really
I shipped him 8 of them, and then when I drove down, I still had a 4-pack with me.
Regular glazed, or was it double glazed orange?
No,
milkshake?
Just regular glazed orange milkshake.
Shout out to Hot Butcher, you, Jeremiah, Justin, outstanding stuff. That's how you get into Perone's, huh? So.
Yeah,
I'll have to make a trip down there once and just bring some with me blindly.
Oh, all you got to do is
Steve,
bring him a minutia.
Oh yeah. All right. If we make a trip out there again, we definitely want to go again soon. So I will have to think about that.
If you go and
start saving my piggy banks up to have an appetizer here.
And just go and get the crab cake.
I'm gonna be like, hey, I heard the kitchen table's open. My friend Jeff says.
Yeah. Well, if you have either one of the female servers, Louisa or Kelly, they'll come up and you just say, I'm a friend of Jeff Beal's, and they're like, oh, we love Jeff, because
like,
they have get out. We don't want you here. They have actually, at least it's a podcast here in Chicago, so I can say this. They're like, Jeff, you're our favorite of all of Steve's friends. You're our favorite.
Obviously.
I'm like, oh, well, thanks. She goes, but you don't expect us to wait on you. You don't expect this. You'll get up and
you're going to bake the bread.
Right. Nobody else is baking the bread.
You're out there working.
But I bust my own table too. I carry my dishes back to the dishwasher.
Yeah.
And I can do that. And but it's remember going back to high school, I worked at a country club.
Right.
We won't.
The service industry enough.
But I never worked at a restaurant, so I had no idea what went on in the kitchen. And
different
of course,
world.
Steve's the chef. He's a perfectionist. He yells at people when they fuck up.
There's some real shit happening back there.
He's yelled at me. He looked at me. He goes, "I'm just going to have to let you go."
There's some real shit going on back there.
Yeah.
People are starting to appreciate that now that they got, Hulu's got the Bear show. Like, it gives you a little bit more of an insight to what's really happening.
Yeah, and there. He's not Gordon Ramsay where he's going crazy, but
you remember Johnsky that worked at Phase 3? He was our sales guy. He's a thin, tattooed fella. Great guy. But his name is Johnsky. John Sarich is his name. But he's actually, in the last couple of years now, he's been the head chef at a spot in Lamont, right where Pollyanna is, called La Dolce Vita.
Okay.
You should make a stop in there one day.
Okay.
And meet him. Like he's I mean, it's so nice. I mean, we don't go there a lot, but like when we do, it's like, what do you want? You know, like, well, don't worry about the menu. What do you want? What do you want? You know, like I can create a pasta or something, but like he's a beer community guy. So he's, you know,
is he a wine drinker?
Oh yeah. He's in everything. He's
okay.
He's one of those like Renaissance man types, you know. Like he knows a little bit about everything.
Okay,
like,
so
he's a wine
I'll just have to bring
guy.
I'll have to bring a bottle of wine with me. And
he's an amazing human being, you know. But he was the first like head sales guy for Phase 3.
Okay,
when they started out, and then so but he used to be the saute guy at this restaurant, and then became the executive head chef there at La Dolce Vita. There's one here in Shorewood here too, but the one that he's at is in Lamont.
Okay,
and
the one in Lamont by Pollyanna.
Basically shares
it
basically shares the parking lot
it's
with
across
Lamont.
that court, like where Pollyanna is here.
You know, it's like they're up on that.
Yep.
You know, and then if you just walk through the end of that parking lot, La Dolce Vita is right there on the main street there. Yeah. So, but the food's great. He's great. Like he's constantly innovating. He's great. I mean, it's the closest thing I might ever have to a Perlins.
Okay. and trust me, I know that I'm totally spoiled because now I go out to restaurants and it's like I compare everything. You know,
I bet.
I'm comparing to Steve, you know, and it's like, you know, and he's done things. He's like, you're not ordering anything. I've got your whole menu tonight planned. And, you know, when he that night I had, Australian Wagyu short ribs. Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, with he made it over rice. He goes, I'm not making polenta for one. He goes,
that's fine.
You know, when this is on the menu, he goes, I serve it with polenta. You know, but the specific type of mushroom he had, oh my God. You know, he goes, no, he goes, do you want mashed potatoes? I'm like, yeah, mashed potatoes are fine. Sure. It wasn't rice. He goes, if it's on the menu, it's with polenta. Potato. He goes, but I'm not making polenta for one. I'm like, that's fine.
Mashed potatoes for one, easy.
Yeah. Well, he has mashed potatoes on them as a side.
He's already making.
You know, because he with the steaks he does. You know, a chop house menu. You know, similar to like a Ruth's Chris where you,
right now.
Yeah, you know where you do.
You see the chop house. It's got the actual chop house menu.
And I mean, you know, he dry ages his own beef.
Of course,
he's got the dryers, and
I'm not shocked.
And I know the one thing.
Yeah, I mean, look what we're working with here. We got prime New York, prime dry aged.
He's got the bone-in veal chop. That veal chop is to die for.
And usually it's a couple of A5 Japanese, a ribeye and a fillet.
Yep. And then
embellishments. Seared foie gras.
Yeah. I mean, just
yeah.
And then some specials for the evening, and and he's got a great staff because
obviously
everybody's I'm always surprised when somebody leaves, because I mean
turnover's pretty tight there, I imagine.
I mean Kelly and Louisa have been there for and the same with Chris, who's now the head bartender. Once Josh left, and Josh is working for he's one of the reps for one of the companies. I mean, who's getting P3 and Hot Butcher now?
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah,
that's absolutely
nuts.
Because
he, Josh and his girlfriend, Chris and Louisa, and another couple. We met them this summer up at it's a pizza place that starts with a P.
In Chicago?
Yeah,
Peace.
No, Pequod's.
Pequod's.
Yeah, Pequod's. And
Pequod's is awesome.
Yeah.
Detroit style kind of. Like it's got that good cast iron.
And we met them all there, and then they were heading Hot Butcher. Because I said, Josh, well, Justin's the brewer. I don't know if he's going to be there, but ask, and because he's
Jude running around
because
there. That's the guy.
He's repping the beer in for whatever distro in South Carolina, and things are interesting. I mean, the guys who are distroing in South Carolina aren't doing anything in North Carolina. But my buddy Paul, who's got the little Coastal Craft, which is like 15 minutes from the house, just across the border. He's getting Hot Butcher in P3, and he's getting stuff, in Sixtel. So he has it on tap every once in a while.
That beer's getting spread that far out.
Yeah, and hey, all that comes from after pandemic, because look at Crafted. All of a sudden they're getting Drecker.
Yeah. Well, Al Maca, Maca has been bringing in so many crazy things. He's built quite a network for himself to be able to get us all these wild things.
Yeah.
And, he doesn't make them eat shit on their, premium, that middleman piece.
Yeah.
So breweries are like, yeah, all right, we'll bring it in.
But getting back to Perone's, one night he's like, I got something for you to try. And I'm like, okay. So, he goes down underneath in the cooler and pulls out this huge Idaho baked potato, and he goes, pressure smoked baked potatoes.
Pressure smoked.
And
so it's like a vacuum or some sort of a...
It's a pressure smoker. So it's a smoker, but I said, well, how much pressure?
What's it look like? Is it almost
I never saw
like
it.
a pressure cooker? Or
probably,
But
so
it smokes.
But it has a smoker aspect to it, and it's 14 pounds of pressure.
Okay.
Okay. So it permeates the whole potato.
Uh-huh.
And then he took and he sliced up the potato and he threw it in the fryer.
Oh.
And he deep fried it. Then he friggin' whips up one of Steve's magical sauces, So there were, and how he sliced it, there were thin slices, there were thicker slices. And then,
so they weren't like potato chips necessarily?
Some were the size of steak fries.
Some were thick boys.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So some were some were thin, but he just sliced that potato like long ways. He didn't make fries out of it, because he makes his own fries too. He doesn't buy fries. He buys the potatoes.
Right.
And then he makes the fries, and his fries are awesome.
Does he run them through like one of the big...
Yeah, and
hand cut
and
kinda.
Something, and cold water blanching.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to cut those things right into a bucket of cold water, the potatoes, and then I actually have a metal one in there with the suction cup and everything, because we used to do them. That was back in the day when we used to go to all the NASCAR races in Illinois, in Chicago, at Joliet, really, at the Speedway. But we had a group that would always host us on the infield.
Okay.
It was Rendell's. Rendell's is a tow company. They do more than tow stuff, but they would have a spot on the infield, and they would always cook these. It was the best fry I ever had.
Okay.
Big turkey fryer, basically, out on the infield. They would always have a 5-gallon bucket of ice water, and you just cut potato after potato right into that bucket. Same thing like Five Guys does, I think, when they make their fries almost. And then they throw them, they pull them out of the fryer, they put them in that big turkey fryer, pull them out, and then it'd be like seasoned salt, garlic, onion type, seasoning, salt and pepper. The best fries I ever had.
Yeah, and I have to say, Steve's are, the best,
and his are probably just salt and pepper or something, or just salt or something. What they're probably outstanding.
They're no longer frying in, I think they were using canola oil. Now
Are they doing like beef tallow?
Beef tallow, yeah. Yep.
You know who does that locally now? They're growing. Obviously, they used to be a small shop, and now they're kind of growing a little bit locally. Is that Fry the Coop?
Oh, Fry the Coop.
Fry the Coop does beef tallow.
Okay.
And McDonald's, I think, has always done it. I've heard that before. That McDonald's was always fried in beef fat, but they advertise it. Fry the Coop beef fat fries, like that's they put it in the commercials and everything. Now they just opened one in Bolingbrook. There's one all over the suburbs now. But Fry the Coop has been the fried chicken spot.
Tinley Park, or
I think there's a couple out in that area. I think they kind of originated on the south side. So they're starting to kind of spread out southwest almost.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to distract. From
that's
the Perone stuff.
That's.
Yes.
But you're looking at
beef fat fries.
Yeah. So now and that was one thing Rachel pushed for. Let's get rid of the seed oils and use the beef tallow.
Yeah, well, you're hearing a lot of stuff about seed oils and all that.
But the thing of it, it's when you're probably looking at price point, it's probably right about the same as things have gotten more expensive.
What a joke everything is. I'm not even going to get into that. Not even going to get into that whole world.
That would be the difference. I would leave here and get to Myrtle Beach, and gas would be $1 a gallon cheaper.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like how. you know, and it was like just the other day, gas was $3.09 on the corner at my house, and the next morning it's $3.49. I'm like,
what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, you know, but then we go
Sleepy
to
Joe was out
right. Then
messing around,
you know,
huh?
then we go to the kids who live in Wilmington and stop by the.
God, I forgot all about that. You got
You know,
kids, Wilmington, football, and
right?
all that.
The state championships and all of
Yep,
that.
yep.
That was so much fun over the years, and that's over.
No,
you
it's a
know,
bummer.
as Shawnee, you know, we'll see what
Cherish
happens.
those
We'll see what
days.
happens with baseball because you know last year they won the state championship in football and ended up third in the state in baseball.
Oh, good. Let's hope they
Same-
build on that.
same
this
group
year
of
then.
kids, you
Yeah,
know?
Let's hope they build again.
These
That's
small,
great.
you know, and they're, I mean, you're looking at small, cool school kids. It's not like, you know, position players. And then, you know, speaking of football, I haven't seen Knicks yet, but Chicago Christian won the state championship for 2A.
Yeah? No shit.
Yeah.
B-Nix.
Yeah.
Oh, the Condor Man is
The
Terry.
Condor
as Terry
Man.
calls him.
Saw
Terry.
saw speaking of Terry,
Condor Man.
yeah, saw Terry.
Did you?
Yeah, like
Oh, shit.
it would have been Friday a week ago.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, man, I
at,
haven't seen
at-
Terry in too
at
long.
Broship.
Oh, okay. You got to get the cans, huh?
Yeah,
They must have had new cans.
Because I was asking him, like, did you go to? I asked him. I said, did you go to North Carolina? He's like, no, I had too much overtime. He goes, they take.
He's still plugging away, huh?
Yeah, he's got a couple more years to go.
Okay. He's
you
still
know,
plugging
but
away.
he told me, he said they send the guys with the least amount of overtime, you know, because then they get down there and they just work their asses off and they make a friggin' fortune.
Those young guys is building it up, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Pissing off their wives for a little bit, but they'll. But you want all the nice shit. Everything's expensive. Send me down to North Carolina.
One of Colin's buddies is a lineman for ComEd. You know, he graduated high school. He went to a climbing school in Florida, spent 6 months down there learning to climb, learning, you know, high voltage electric, blah, 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 stuff like that. Came back, applied for ComEd, waited about a month, got the job. Now he's an apprentice lineman. Now, I mean, he's literally set for the rest
Just
of his
needs
life.
to take care of him. Just needs to do his job. And
Right,
then he'll
if
be
that's
fine.
what he wants to do. And, you know, we need workers like that. Not everybody can be a game designer.
No.
You know,
No, that's going to get us all in trouble.
you know. And then speaking of podcast, I've grandson number 1 is now doing all the multimedia for the Sea Boys.
I don't know what the Sea Boys are,
The
but that
Sea Boys, look those
great.
bad boys
yeah,
up.
what you
They
got?
are they're a couple of guys out of Minnesota, and they've got like thousands of or millions of followers.
Millions, yeah. Oh yeah, 2. Here we go. What do we got? 4.12 million subscribers.
That's a lot of subscribers, isn't it?
Oh, it's a lot of subscribers. Here. So, what are they doing over there? These Sea Boys.
They're doing all kinds.
This is their kind of shit, huh?
Yeah.
They're just wild boys. I can see that.
And they started.
So who's doing this?
Josh.
Josh is doing. He's
all
like doing
all the
like editing and stuff.
editing, all
or
the
like
multimedia for them. They started following Josh when he got his first GoPro and slapped it on his RC cars.
Wow.
And started making videos, and then he went from RC cars to real Jeeps.
This is cool. That's funny. And he's doing a bunch of work for
And
them.
he
That's cool.
just went to work for them, and he's making a fortune. I mean, they're paying him well.
But like you can say, not everybody can do this.
Exactly.
Not everybody's gonna hit that.
But that's also what he went to school for, was multimedia.
the Sea Boys.
And Sea Boys.
I love it.
You know, yeah. Look, it's go karts, trucks.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
Thin ice. Just Sea Boys TV.
Tell Josh I need these guys on my podcast.
Yeah.
I need some of their 4.2 million subscribers.
I mean, you know.
That's impressive. That's cool.
Yeah, and it was funny. So I was, you know, because you know they're into jeeping and like where the dog groomers that we use for Maggie and give Jake a bath, the girls have Jeeps, you know. And then I was talking to them because like the boys will go out to Moab which
Okay.
is,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, the real deal.
Right.
You know, people down here go to the Badlands in Indiana. You know,
Yeah.
they're going
Good
out to
time. You
Moab.
get shit in a hole
Yeah,
there.
right.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But,
and
yeah.
and I said, yeah, Josh is working for the Sea Boys, and their son, you know, the son perked up. He's like, the Sea Boys, they're awesome. And I had never heard of them before.
Yeah.
You
But
know, so
apparently he's got clout.
he's got clout.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, let's end here, right? So
Okay.
so thank you for bringing bottles in. You
Oh,
brought
yeah,
a brought a
you're more than
can. I
welcome.
already drank half of your double barrel Benthic. Drank a whole bottle of your nice Contessa wine here for a second round of that. Yeah, that. I really do appreciate you coming out and doing this.
Oh, well, thanks for inviting me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're just a dude I like to talk to anyway, so it was kind of a good excuse to get you and hang out, and we can drink some cool stuff and talk. So let's leave some like Easter eggs at the end for Nix and Zach and what do you think? So we need to have like a lunch bunch code or something.
Yeah.
You think they'll make it? You think they'll make it? We're about to hit 3 hours here in no time. You think like we got to say something terrible about him, right? How's Zach doing? Is he the mayor of Frankfurt yet? Or
No,
is
but
he,
he's the head of public works, so we don't see him as
that
much.
city's gonna go to shit. And fucking the Condor man's running around.
The Condor man's
all
running.
The
Right,
IT is probably a mess at whatever that school is he's
Hey,
working for.
He's coaching JV girls basketball.
I know. He's going to blow out both ACLs. He's on the court too much, I think. I think that's going to be a real problem for him. And then we'll just talk about how much we love Kyle and Allison.
Oh,
Big
definitely.
shouts out to Kyle
Definitely.
and Allison.
Big shout out to Kyle and us. I'll pick her up Thursday night for
I was,
Midway.
Oh, cool! I was really happy to ran into Kyle and Tippett at Fobab, so I got to spend some time with them.
Okay, yeah. I know they went on Friday.
Talk some beer. It was awesome. I was there was at the Fobab. There was a lager lounge up in the
Right. He was telling me that.
the upper area. So that's we stood up there, me and Shannon, and then her mom and dad came with us. So,
Okay.
So we were all up there watching the awards, and the awards happened like right down from that.
Okay.
In the center, we're off to the side up in the arena, and I could see Tom and Kyle Albright and Kyle Nat and Nick and all of them standing right center stage, kind of watching the awards as they were announcing them. Mm-hmm. And they did like the mead category was one of the first categories to announce, and I think the silver medal went to one of the meads that Kyle had told me like right at the beginning. He was like, "That's one of the worst fucking things I've ever drank in my life." And they announced it, and I'm like looking at Shannon. I'm like, Kyle told me. I'm like, I can see Kyle down there, and I'm like, Kyle told me that was one of the worst things he's ever put in his mouth. They just won a silver.
Oh, that's funny.
I'll shout out to Brothership, bronze medal, bronze medal, and barley wine
for the barley wine.
That's a hell of a category to get any medal in. So pretty happy for them.
And the stout they took is awesome,
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah.
It was so good. I mean, it's so decadent. It's like, I get it. I get why a judge wouldn't be like, this is the best stout here. But if you just want to taste something good, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, because I mean, and the way the flavors all meld together, the creaminess of the vanilla, the coconut, the chocolate on the back. I mean, and the barrel. I
mean, they don't really miss. I mean,
not
with the barrels. I mean, that's 100%.
No, they've been doing, and I mean, age 36 months.
Unbelievable. And you wouldn't be able to tell, man.
No.
And you know what? A big love to Dan. It's been great having him.
Yep.
I mean, Lewis was awesome too. I mean, obviously he's got his own thing going now, monochrome. But Dan's a great fit there. I feel
he
like
is.
He's doing a great job, and all the regular beers coming out great. The barrel aged stuff's coming out great. And obviously Ryan and Kyle, huge hand in that.
Yeah.
But to have Dan there every day, fucking awesome. Great.
Yeah,
guy.
and I just drank Just the Weather Balloon, which was.
What was that? What's that one?
That one's Citra.
Hazy?
Yeah.
Hazy double?
Peacherine double. Yeah. And New England hazy.
Oof. I can't
They
haven't been out there.
They got their hands on some Peacherine hops. And
yeah, the Peacherines are nice. The nectarine.
They're doing a good. Yeah, they're
Peacherine,
doing a good job with with that. And I forget the one with
the Nectron and the Peacherines have been probably the two kind of more newer modern hops that I really haven't had any issue with any of them.
No, and they just give such that stone fruit flavor. I mean, it's just
bangers every time.
Yeah,
and with the way they make beer, they're just that good. Well, that's it, dude. I don't want to hold this for any longer. I'm sure you and I will want to talk after this anyway. So
yeah.
So we'll have a chat. We can finish up this benthic. I don't have anything in my glass to cheers you with, but thank you again.
Well, thanks for
coming out.
having me. It was been a blast.
Well, cheers, dude. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.